Yeah.
The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please, of course nobody is, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. To participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. I turn it back to you.
Okay. Approval of minutes. Do we approve the ones for our regular meeting, and the other one we'd have to wait until more members got here, or can you just go through and do it?
Nope, it's administrative. So even if you weren't at the meeting, you can vote to approve the minutes.
Has anybody got any omissions or corrections to the minutes that have been drafted?
It looked good.
I sent Amy some just housekeeping stuff, nothing of content.
Somebody want to make a motion to approve them as?
For October 18 and 19, if you want to do them both at once.
Sure.
So moved.
We approve the meeting minutes from the October 18th, Sunday, October 18th meeting, as well as a Monday, October 19th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Andrew got it.
Aye.
So,
And I guess we're going to have Carl, you want to do your thing?
yeah, I will. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Hey.
Carl
There
Melbury.
you are.
Aye. Jim Pickard.
Jim Pickard, yay.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Sarah Seward.
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
Andrew Samarco.
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Unanimous.
All right.
Hi,
Okay.
sorry I'm late.
And we go on to the administrative discussions, 93 Manawanaki modification. What was the outcome of the site visit for that one?
So just quickly, and then Mr. Souza, who is the owner, can speak. Kyle, Andrew, and I did a site walk last Tuesday, and they had been approved to expand their slightly raised wooden deck and put in a rain garden, basically. But on advice of their contractor, basically, they ended up doing a patio with the rain garden. So there was a unapproved project change, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Souza.
Is it possible for me to share my screen, or should I just talk?
You can. Do you know how?
I do, if I'm allowed to.
Yep, you have. Everybody has that capability, actually, in this format.
Okay, thanks. Let me try this.
You're on the screen in front of me.
I am, yep. I'm just trying to get the,
I might be able to put it up if you can't.
yeah, I practiced this ahead of time, and now, of course, it's, do you see anything other than me?
No.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you start talking, and we'll put it up. I think I've got it.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we understand that because we made a change, we had to also change the design of what we were doing to prevent the stormwater runoff. So we've done a couple of things that I'd like to review with you and get your comments. One is we're now connecting the downspout from the roof in the back of the house will now be connected to a dry well, which wasn't in the original plan. We're also digging a 2-foot French drain, a trench, that will also run and be connected to a dry well lateral to the patio so that it's moving water away from the lake front. The dry well itself is new. That'll also be installed lateral to the patio. That'll be, and I'll show you later if I can, 3 foot by 3 foot by 4 foot dry well. The rain garden is original in the plan. That has, I think, 38 pollinator plants with a porous topsoil that we dug down a foot or so to replace the original dirt. And we're also intending to increase the height of a berm that's at the end of the rain garden. There'll be a berm that'll be essentially 3 to 3.5 inches high that in case any water puddles, it'll fall back into the rain garden. So those are the collection devices, the downspout, the French drain, and the dry well, the rain garden, and the berm. We're also what I'll call conveying devices. The downspout will convey water from the roof gutter into the dry well. And in the trench, there'll be a 4-inch perforated pipe that'll be sloped down and convey water laterally away from the lake, also into the dry well. Unfortunately, unless Amy could pull it up, I had a schematic of what the dry well trench system would look like, but essentially,
Can you see my screen?
let me go back to Zoom, sorry.
Wow, it says
I was,
We can see
oh, you
yours.
got it, okay. Oh, great, thank you. That's perfect. So the trench drain will be a pipe, a 4-inch perforated pipe. That'll be 10 inches down into the 2-foot trench. That'll collect water and there'll be a grate over the trench. That water would spill into the trench, go through the 4-inch perforated pipe, and can be conveyed laterally over to the dry well. Next one, Amy, if you know. Thank you. So this is, again, this isn't the exact setup, but it's representative of what will be installed. So the stormwater would run into the trench, into the pipe. There'd be some amount of sediment that would fall that wouldn't go into the pipe, but that'll go into the ground. That'll then be transferred over to the dry well that it has rock and fabric around it, so the water would seep out underground and away from the lake. So this is a closed system that would basically it should allow no runoff water to get to even to the rain garden. So the rain garden essentially would be collecting rainwater, not runoff water, with that trench there. So again, as we envision it and we believe, all the stormwater runoff will be contained, and most of it will be conveyed laterally away from the lake. Any uncollected stormwater, if any, and I don't think there'll be any, would fall into and be contained by the rain garden, and then that raised berm would also be an added protection for any water that was puddling on top of the rain garden. And there's also a couple of slatted wood areas that would let water fall through there. So the patio is dead flat, so water tends to. I was out there last Thursday watching during the heaviest of the rain, and most of the rain sat on the patio, and then would fall into the rain garden. There was little to no puddling in the rain garden, so most of the water, if not all of it, was being absorbed by the soil. And right here, you can't see my pointer, I guess, but those small rocks would be removed, small bricks would be removed, so that yeah, thank you. The trench would encompass the entire perimeter of the patio, so that two foot trench would encircle the patio, and that pipe would be inserted down into the trench. And then you can see the next where the gentlemen are standing. You can see yeah, right in that area, a little bit further away, would be where the dry well would be sunk. And then the downspout that you can't see from the house would run also into that dry well. So we believe that there's little chance of any runoff escaping, if you will, the trench or the downspout, and everything would be funneled into the dry well. And because of the patio, the way it was flat, the rain garden had to be shortened. So that's not as big as the original plan. But again, I was out there Thursday during the heaviest of the rain, and even without the trench and the downspout tied in or the dry well, the rain garden was capturing anything that was getting into it. There was no puddling or overflow. So the one thing we failed to do that was a mistake on our part, we thought when we weren't going to do the wood deck that we could simply close out the building permit or simply not take out a building permit and then just continue with what we were doing. Amy corrected us that we should have filed an amended or a new notice of intent, and we didn't do that. That was our mistake, and we didn't do it intentionally, but we just did it out of ignorance.
So just to summarize for the commission, this is the approved plan here. Again, the lake is down at the bottom. Here is the rain garden and what would have been the new deck patio. And it says the scale is 1 to 10, but I don't know. There's no bar there, so I'm not sure what that means. But I think there would have been a certain amount of grass between the rain garden and the deck, which I think you saw from the photos is not there. So the question for the commission is, do you want to approve this as a minor modification, or ask for a modified order conditions or a new notice of intent?
Well, minimal, I think they should apply for a modification. I got a question about those bricks that they want to take out. Are they going to fill that with crushed stone or something, so you're not stepping off an edge or something?
Yeah, so that when those stones go out, they'll dig a 2 foot trench. They'll put the pipe 10 inches down. They'll put stone, and then and then over the top of that will be an open grating that you can walk on. So it'll be a walkable surface, but it'll be open. So that's where the water would fall into the trench.
How does the rest of the board feel about where we should go from here?
I also would agree with the modification. I'm wondering though, you had a separation between the bottom of the trench and the water table. I would imagine you're so close to the lake that the water table is pretty high. Are you fairly certain of that height of that water table, and what is the separation distance? It didn't have an exact distance of separation.
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, I can tell you that the intent was to put the trench down 2 feet from the surface. So I guess, so I don't know, how much further down from that 2 feet is the water table? I don't know.
Yeah, and the water table has to be, what do you think, maybe at least 4 feet probably? That's a pretty big drop off down to the lake level.
The wall over on the lake side is like you said, a good 4 feet, and it's a tiny bit higher, but not much.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know enough to answer you, so thank you for that.
Yeah, the one thing we discussed, and based on looking at the approved plans, and apparently there should have been some grassed area in between the what would have been deck and rain garden is actually, I think in Amy's last picture, there's some room to maybe expand this pollinator garden or rain garden and pollinator this way a little bit, to add some square footage for the square footage that we would have lost or that we did lose.
I can add as much rain garden as possible before the drywell goes in. So I'm happy to do that. I don't know where the drywell exactly is going to be, but I'll expand the rain garden, up to that point. It might be a foot or a foot and a half. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But I'll do that.
Yeah, it would be nice to see that drywell kind of as close to the downspout as possible, so that you could. I mean, I don't see why. I guess you need access to the drywell, but you could still put a rain garden around that.
Yeah, I'll expand it just so I have enough room for a walkout, so I can get off the patio up out of there.
Yeah.
How much bigger is the patio than what was originally planned?
I think the patio actually is smaller than the deck, but it's, I'll have to measure it. I'll have to go out and measure that and give that to Amy and compare it to the dimensions of the original deck.
Yeah, I thought when we were looking at the plans, we had it coming
Yeah,
off.
if the planning commission wants to go with requesting an amended order of conditions, you would just need to have all that in the filing.
Right.
I feel that is appropriate myself. I don't know about the rest of the members.
I think that's appropriate too.
Yeah.
Definitely. I agree. Phil, do you know, have there been any calculations done to determine what size storm event this system would be able to handle? You mentioned you were out there last week during the heavy rain, but I'd be curious to know if there are any, engineering calculations that have been done.
The only thing, and I got it in email, but the only thing I asked him specifically, what's the capacity of the trench to handle runoff? And his answer back to me was it would handle 500 gallons. Now that seems like a lot, but so I don't know if a hurricane, I don't know how much a typical rainstorm would drop, but 500 seemed like sufficient to handle any event that I've seen since I've been here. And again, when I was out there the other day without a trench, because the patio was flat, there was not a lot of water running off the edge into the rain garden. And the rain garden, like I said, the rain garden didn't have puddling. I had a video I would show you, but since we're having trouble here in your time, but I can give Amy the video during that heaviest of the rains on Thursday, and it was handling everything fine. So I guess my only answer is 500 gallons. But I don't know if that means anything to you.
Now, if the patio's flat, did they then, the joints between the stones of the patio, did they grout those, or are they pervious? And if they're pervious, maybe that's why you're not getting much runoff.
No, they're grouted.
Yeah, it certainly.
Yeah,
So
they're grouted. They're
It's all
grouted.
sealed? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Again, I apologize about the NOI. We just made a mistake.
so do we need to have a vote on this, Amy? That they,
I don't think so. It seems the consensus is to request an amended order of conditions. And I can go through that with Mr. Souza, what's needed to be done.
okay. So I guess if that's okay with the rest of the board, then I guess we should move on to the next issue here.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, Eagle Scout project, Griffin Copa.
I think Griffin is here.
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
You still got that Manor Monarchy thing, or am I wrong on that?
No, this is actually for Cloverdale,
Okay, that's good.
and the bridge is in here
Mhm.
that Griffin might be doing. So take it away, Griffin.
All right. So, yeah, hi, I'm Griffin. And so, I mean, I guess I'll just basically go over what I'm looking to do. Basically, yeah, like right in the Cloverdale conservation land, there's about an 80-foot, roughly 80-foot stretch of kind of like marshy land. Well, it gets marshy like when it's wet, but my idea is to do a boardwalk using old telephone poles from the light department as like a base layer, and to like put those down to the ground, and then get funding for like actual wood to put on top of that. It's pretty simple. Yeah, that's the diagram. And so the base layer would be the telephone poles. Those are completely free to us. So it shouldn't cost too much money. I don't really know. That's basically it. It's pretty simple.
The telephone poles are going, are you putting planks on top of them, or are you using the telephone pole?
Telephone pole, or basically the spanners across the reach.
Yeah, basically to like
Top of it.
elevate it a little bit and just to give it a good like base layer.
I would like to see something, a cement curve, a cement something. My personal thing would be something other than the telephone pole laying directly on the ground.
Okay.
I don't know what the options are, pressure treated or. Jim, you got any comments?
Jim, what do you think about using just one of those small concrete, they're like 3 or 4 times the size of a paver, but they're, they're rectangular shape, perhaps use something like that, and then put, if there's a way to secure or put the poles on top of those, it would elevate it, certainly have the concern of the saturation with the poles directly in the soil.
Make poles last longer too, if they're not laying on the ground.
Yeah, it would be a way, it would be nice if there's a way to kind of have it so it's in a hummock so that it can actually be in a cradle of something to keep it up. But Griffin, I think you maybe look into something that's, easy to move, that's just like a little concrete pad. And if there's a way to stabilize the telephone poles on top of that, I don't know how you would do that without it rocking back and forth, but, and I'm sure that you're aware of the extreme increase in lumber prices as well. So, it's gotta be costly for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim, I see you got your hand raised.
Yeah, on that diagram, the little round circles are actually the phone poles, and the 4x4s across the top. It's built very, very similar to the way we built the other Cloverdale boardwalks, except we were going to use the utility poles because they're on site, and everything else would be constructed the same way that we built the other boardwalks. 4x4s are the brown colored things, and then attached to the top of them would be 2x6s for treads. So if you want to have something different for the base, we'd have to come up with something else besides the phone poles.
Griffin, do you or does anybody know if the telephone poles are those typically treated with chemicals?
That was going to be my question.
Is that a concern?
I'm not sure.
Pressure treated usually of some sort.
Well, they're old poles that Savas dumped down there for us about 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And we used 2 of them for the original crossing of the stream, which spans the stream. They are actually not on the ground. They're on cement blocks. But there were 2 poles left up on the hill, and I thought we would use them, but they're probably creosote based.
I was
But
going to say
they're
that.
pretty much leached out now. I mean, they're all kind of a light gray color.
Yeah, the creosote's usually limited to the lower portion that goes into the ground anyway, right?
Yeah.
So if you can use the
No, I mean, as far as I know, the telephone poles are coated. The whole thing is coated with creosote to make it last a long time, but that's my impression.
Would that problem be eliminated if there was some sort of concrete or cement base beneath them?
I would think if it's raised up out of anything, any water area, that the only concern would be the leaching. But if Jim, if you're correct in that they're fairly weathered, I would think that probably the leaching would be minimal.
And it sounds like we've already used these on Cloverdale. Is that what you're saying, Jim? We've used these poles already?
Yeah, the bridge that goes across the inlet stream, we used two about 40-foot poles there that the guys that did the invasive mitigation used their skidder, and they dropped them right across the stream for me. So all I had to do was just put blocks underneath them. So they are being used there already, and it's probably only 30 or 40 feet from that site that we're going to be putting in this new one.
And
maybe you can share with Griffin.
Poles used in a lot of other crossings too. Well, several other crossings in town.
Just a thought, I would bang on them, make sure they don't sound hollow.
Yeah, they seem fairly sound. I probably won't know till we cut them up, but if we don't use them, they'll just sit there. They're laying right up by the guardrail now.
But you would, I take it you would like to see a cement pad or some sort of a patio block or something under them, just for them to set on it. Would that be appropriate?
We could do that.
It sounds like your other bridge is setting on something.
Yeah. Yeah, we could probably put like a one of those 3-inch 18 by 18 patio blocks, or maybe even 12 by 12, one on each end of the foam poles, and then and then attach the 4x4s to the top of those. That would get the actual utility pole off the ground. But as far as leaching goes, I mean, there'd still be some leaching if it was going to happen. I mean, whether it's on contact with the ground or whether it's in the air, when it rains, it could leach off anyway. But
What's the rest of the board feel on this? Any comments?
I feel like if we could put some pavers underneath the poles, that would be ideal. But like Jim said, I feel like it's already being used. The poles are already being used on the site, so I don't see any big deal in using them for this crossing.
But with a paver underneath it, just to keep them off the ground?
I would definitely prefer
Yeah.
that they're not on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, a paver, or they could even make a rock bed. I mean, they could, if it's easier to create a rock bed to stabilize it, gets it off the ground as well.
Researching is an interesting part of these projects. Perhaps Griffin would like to look into sort of the process of the development of the poles and how it could impact the environment.
Yeah,
Well,
I can definitely do.
as far as I know, in creosote, you mainly have the semi-volatile contaminants, the PAHs, hydrocarbons that don't move very much. They are toxic in small amounts, but they are pretty immobile. You know, once they even if when they leach off the poles. So,
Well, you can ask New England Power later tonight.
Right, but I think it would be good for the scout to discover these things, Anna.
Right, and Matt, I think that's a great
Exactly.
point as part of their discovery. If there's still, and Jim, you might know if there is still the poles are all individually numbered, so they can actually track back that pole if the number is still on it. Sometimes they are left on them. So you can
yeah, there may be some tags on them.
Yep.
One question I have is, someone mentioned, Jim, I think mentioned, was going to be pressure treated. Would pressure treated be preferable to the utility poles? Because Amy can verify this. We may have a line on some 8x8 pressure treated timbers from the 151 Taylor Road project that they're going to be ripping out of there.
But the timing's probably not going to be good for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
The timing's probably not going to be good.
no, yeah, okay.
I think you may be trading one evil for another.
Mm.
With the pressure treated, you get the metals. With the creosote, you get the PAHs. So you know both, and the copper that's used now instead of arsenic in pressure treated is more toxic to animals and amphibians likely than even PAHs, but as far as than arsenic.
I'm going to wave you off. We're running 15 minutes.
Okay, I would just suggest that you don't put the butt in that's been in the ground. Usually that's got a lot of creosote on it.
Okay.
Maybe Griffin can just report back on a final design.
In the interest of time, I'll come up with something different. We may be able to use the plastic tubes that we used on the other boardwalks in a smaller version.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta,
Then we would eliminate any toxicity.
okay. I guess we've been, gotta kind of move along.
Sorry.
Thanks, Griffin. Good luck. We look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you.
Arrogant, Foxborough Road, that letter, is that something you gotta print up and re-sign?
I would skip off the rest of this stuff and move on to the first public hearing, the 7:15 on the next page there.
Continued public hearing, notice of intent, 97 Mill Road, U1914-2, Mass DEP file number 204-918. Should be straightforward. No 21E issues.
No, those are my comments, not the public
Okay.
comments.
Okay.
And I think I saw Neil down out there
Yeah.
somewhere.
I'm here.
He was on a stopwatch.
Good evening. Neil Gorman from David E. Ross Associates, representing the property owner Warren's Mill Realty. And we were here a couple weeks ago. We presented this septic upgrade to you and the installation of a new water line coming in from Mill Road, then branching off into the two buildings on the site that have plumbing. One of the questions the commission had last week was there any 21E reports performed on this or studies performed on this site? And yes, they were. And the applicant has provided a PDF copy to Amy. And I believe the outcome of that, there was no contamination issues found. So that's on file with the commission's office. And the other question was, we were waiting for a DEP number, which I believe one was issued for the project. Right, Amy?
Yes, 918.
918.
918.
And then the only other change that came up was, the other thought was they wanted to hear about the Board of Health. Last week, the Board of Health did approve the plan. I had Janet forward over Amy confirmation of that. The minutes aren't finalized yet, but they have approved the design. And the design that's before you was revised for the Board of Health meeting based on the comments of Jim Gariffi, the health agent. And if Amy zooms in a little bit there, that's great, Amy, thank you. So the plan was there's two buildings that have plumbing. We call them Building 1 and Building 2. Building 1's up at the top of the plan. Building 2 is a larger building on the bottom. And we were tying all of that into the two tanks behind building number 2. But Jim Gariffi had requested that we add a second tank up by building number 1. So now each building has their own septic tank to handle all the the waste coming out of those buildings individually. And then just the dirty water from each of those will go to the same dosing chamber or pump chamber labeled DC there. So the new tank that was proposed is up by building 1, is outside of any of the jurisdictional areas. It's outside the 200-foot riverfront zone, and it's outside of the flood zone. So that was the only change that happened between the plan I presented to you at the last meeting and this plan that was approved by the Board of Health. So I know you guys are a little behind, and it was a pretty straightforward change. Nothing else changed and we got you some answers that you were looking for. So I'll turn it back to the chairman for any questions from the commission.
Got any questions?
Is
If
it,
not, go ahead.
this is the one where Mass DEP came back with the compensatory storage comments. So I just thought we should touch on that. So Mass DEP indicated that it was kind of up, it sounded like to me, based on the comments, and Amy, if I'm getting this wrong, like please jump in, but it sounded to me like it was kind of up to us about whether we had concerns about compensatory storage subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. You know, and so I just looked at what their comment was and, you know, gave it, just thinking about the way the site is being redeveloped. I didn't really have any major concerns regarding compensatory storage. It sounds like we could say that we're not concerned about it at this time, but perhaps if you know, we might relook at it in the future if the development of the site were to change. So I just wanted to bring that up. I had no major concerns after reading those comments.
Yeah, I was thinking what you might be able to do is, like you said, put it in a finding that I think it was what, 8 cubic feet, Neil, is that right?
Yeah,
Of
it's very,
fill?
very de minimis really up by
It's
building
very-
number 2.
Yeah, so put it in the findings, and you could also make it a continuing condition that if more work is done on this site, that 8 cubic feet should be added if they need to do, you know, some major earth moving out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we would, you know, as the comment kind of indicated, we could reserve the right to, you know, look at it again in the future if we were, you know, if the design of the development changed.
If
Yeah,
there's,
I would agree with that.
if there's no more comments, would somebody make a motion to approve, please?
So I'll make a motion to approve. I don't
Septic.
have the approve the new septic design and issue the order of conditions. And I don't have the DEP file number in front of me.
204-918.
204-108
918.
918.
Right, and would I suggest you put the water line too in there, water lines in your motion, please?
With the water lines.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Was that Andrew?
Yep.
All those in favor, this is Carl Melberg, aye. Jim Pickard,
Jim Pickett, aye.
Kyle Maxfield,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew Samarco,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Sarah Seward,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Unanimous.
Excellent. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Neil?
You too.
Good night.
Conservation Commission goals and priorities, should we table that for a little bit, Amy, or?
Yeah, up to you guys. It is 7:30, so.
Yeah.
I kind of put it in the middle, so it'd be a little bit of a space saver if we needed it.
Okay. Can I haven't got a clock in front of me, so. Public
Actually,
notice.
no, we have 6 minutes.
So 5 minutes in.
Okay, then we can address that a little bit.
So we can either do that or go back to some of the administrative pieces.
Okay, Mary Shepard Trail.
Actually, the one above that, I assume you would want me to write a letter to Aggregate about donating the gravel and labor to building that little parking lot on Boxborough Road.
I think that would be very gracious of you, and I guess all of us should sign it, plus you.
Yeah, or I can just sign it. Well, actually, yeah, it's easy to sign it, so I can do that. I can send that around.
Do we need selectmen approval to solicit a gift?
Hey, it's done.
Oh, it's done.
So they literally had to have it done by, what was it, Jim? September 30th?
The end of September.
Yeah, for their kind of fiscal year or whatever their cutoff period is. So it was quick.
Oh.
But I will certainly keep that in mind for next time.
Okay.
because they did say they might make this an annual thing, so donating some gravel.
Okay. Mary Shepard Trail?
That actually can maybe get pushed to the discussion of the goals, priorities, and budget stuff, but that was sort of one of the next things Jim and I were thinking about tackling, is getting a loop into Mary Shepard. But it is going to be pretty close to some houses in there. So we might want to think about how we approach that.
Okay. How about Brown Wood permit filing?
That is just an FYI that I'm sort of trying to pull together the permits for Brown Woods. That would be for the Phragmites control, as well as for the house demo. None of which would actually happen until January or later sometime. But the Phragmites control would require filing an environmental notification or a notice in the environmental monitor and all that. So it just takes a little extra time. to
Okay.
line.
Chestnut Lane mitigation.
Well, Colby went out to build that wetland mitigation site that was required, I don't know, a decade ago. And apparently no investigation had really been done on the site because he ran into ledge in no time. So we worked it out. We scraped as much as we could. We pulled it back because he didn't realize it was lead until the trees were down and he had started the excavating. So I think he got to the target square footage. The trees and shrubs and everything are in. So I just want to give you a heads up that the as-built is going to look a little different than what was approved. I believe they accomplished the goals.
Okay.
And at that point, there really was no no alternative. You were dealing with the situation on the ground. And one of the main abutter to it was extremely unhappy because he had bought the house not knowing that all those trees were going to be coming down due to a permit from 10 years ago. So they're still working that out.
Okay. How about Crestview notice on continuance? Where are we with that one?
I just want to put the bug in here. I can't really discuss it tonight. That Crestview has been continued for a very long time, and I can't remember when the filing started. That if you want to ask the applicant to either withdraw or end up denying it, it's within your right anytime you want to. There's a process that legal counsel kind of gave to me. So I think they're continued to November 16th. So maybe at that meeting, if you're so inclined, we can have that discussion about whether or not to let them continue.
Right. I think from a housekeeping standpoint, I think that it's imperative that we start to kind of keep track of those. So I would be inclined to look at that at the next meeting. And it's an exercise that I think we need to kind of utilize a little bit more often.
And I had put Neil kind of on alert that this might be coming up. So.
Okay. Other updates and administrative actions?
I don't think so.
Hey, Amy, did you hear, so I sent Amy an email about a week and a half ago that 9 Air Road, the curb appears to be collapsing and there's material, tracked out onto the street. And so I had made an observation and sent that to Amy about a week and a half ago, just to say, hey, can you please ask them to take a look at this and clean up the sand and gravel that's getting tracked out onto the road. As of a couple of days ago, it doesn't look like anything has happened. So if we could reach back out to them again, this is really
they do know about it. The need for it is showing up in the SWIPs, but they haven't done it yet. Janet Fields said they were going to try to deal with it tomorrow, but I gave them the heads up that they're going to be in later tonight and they might hear about it. So,
well, I mean, that's not part of that hearing. That's why I was mentioning it.
I said they still might hear about it.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, I will continue to keep an eye on them.
Okay, that's helpful information. Thanks.
So are we able to go along with the next hearing at 7:30? Or are we?
7:45, 3 Dahlia.
Yep. Notice of intent, 3 Dahlia, U17-405-0, Mass DEP file number 204 something, raised existing dwelling and replace septic system. Who's gonna speak to this?
Yep. So I'm here, Kevin Ritchie here from Civil Solutions. I'm here on behalf of Jim Shearer. He's purchasing 3 Dahlia Drive. It's an existing 2-bedroom dwelling with a failed septic system. The septic system that's there now is in the groundwater. We have designed a septic plan. It's been permitted through the Board of Health. So it is an approved plan. All the components of the septic system are outside the 100-foot buffer. So we've got the tanks and a leach field here. Basically, the wetland is across the street on Dahlia. There's a drain that runs down through the property, dumps out under across the street, and begins a little wetland here. So there's the existing house is here. We're going to be raising that and building a new house. The existing house is 56 feet off the wetland. So currently the house is 56 feet. The proposed house, we're going to push it back further from the wetlands. So we'll go to 70, increase that offset from 56 to 71 feet. There's an existing driveway, paved driveway here to a garage in the back, which is outside the buffer. But we will be removing the entire paved driveway. We'll be removing the garage. And we're going to move this driveway up the street further off the wetlands. So you can see the existing driveway here is within the 50-foot buffer. The existing driveway is within the 50 feet. I'm going to move it up the street and get it so that it's just outside the 50-foot buffer. The total impervious area on the lot will not change. It's going to be basically the same as it is now. Once we get rid of the sheds, the house, the driveway, that'll equal the area, the impervious area of the new dwelling and driveway. We will be, so the closest we'll be working is here. They're currently on town water. Excuse me. There's a water gate here. So we're going to be retying into that water gate and bringing it into the new house. So that'll be the closest point of disturbance, and along with the removal of the driveway. I think that's pretty much it.
So I guess even though it is actually an improvement to the property, you'd still have to apply for a waiver then, if you're doing work within the 50.
We did submit a waiver request.
Okay, that's good.
Anybody else got any comments?
What's the difference in square footage between the old, the existing house and the new proposed one?
So the old house was 1,110 square feet, give or take, and the new one's about 1,170. So it's about 60 square feet larger. Yeah, yes.
But the square footage within the
Oh, that is the within the 100 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was what I calculated within the 100 feet.
Okay.
So is that the footprint or the
No, that's the footprint within the 100 foot.
Okay. What about the house square footage?
Yeah, don't I didn't calculate that. What I did calculate was all the impervious structures. So the garage and the shed, the driveway in the house, and compared that to the new house and the new driveway, and those were equal.
But that's just like the plan view, not the square footage of the house itself.
Yeah, and also it was a total of all the structures.
Mhm. Okay.
And actually the new driveway, which is great, which is moved further out, is it's about 250 square feet less than the existing driveway. So the paved area will be decreasing. The house in the buffer zone is going up by about 60 square feet.
I don't see any decks or patios. Are you gonna do any?
I don't see any either. Nobody's proposed any at this point.
Okay, are they going to be proposed? Because that's.
I would guess if they were, they did not mention them. This is the footprint the builder gave us. Obviously, you got the garage here, so there's nothing going in front of the garage. I would guess if they put anything on, it would be in the back of the house outside the 100-foot buffer.
So one thing we've been running into lately is we, have all this, productive and meaningful discussion about, what we're discussing now. And then there's an approval, and then there's oops, wait a minute. And, a property comes back for something that really should have been, something like a porch or a deck or a patio, within the buffer. It's something that really should be included when you're going for your permit. Is there any way to get that information, or just ask? Because we
I can certainly ask, because it's a lot easier to find out before
Right.
rather than later.
Right. And it's kind of become an issue, and we don't have the proper discussions necessarily. And so I really think we need to, start getting that information ahead of time, to prevent last minute headaches all around, really.
Yep. No more.
There's front steps or front sidewalk.
Is there also, is he gonna bury the utilities, or is that coming in off the street off a pole, or what?
I'm not sure.
There's a note about a nail-in utility pole right to the right of the driveway, but I don't see any lines going in.
Yeah, no, so that's the telephone pole. We didn't show any, the only utility we actually show is the water line.
So it might be just above ground wires.
It may be, but you never know what they want to do. Do they want to stick them in the ground and bring them in? I'm not sure.
How high is groundwater there on the site?
Yep, so in this area over here where the septic system was,
Yep.
There was a little bit of fill there already. It was between 42 inches and 4 feet.
Okay, so burying utilities it's iffy.
Marginal, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Now, sorry if I'm beating a dead horse, but I don't know. I didn't quite get the difference in square footage within the 100-foot. So you said that there was a reduction in the amount of the driveway, but then an increase of 60 for the house. So that seems to me that in the 100-foot, you're decreasing the amount of impervious within that line.
I would say yes, because within the 100 feet, we're bumping the house footprint is increased by 60, but from the driveway, we've dropped by 250.
Right.
So it should be a net decrease.
So it'd be good to have those numbers as well, just within the 100, how, the change in impervious.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we need to continue this till the next meeting.
We don't have a DEP file number yet anyway.
Yep. Is this anything that requires a site inspection for anybody of the board members or anything? in the meantime?
I'd like to go see it, actually.
Is the house somewhat staked out or?
I don't believe the house, so it's, everything's, the garage and the shed and the house, the driveway, those are all there now. Don't think there's anybody living in it right now. I think they did move out recently. I would think if you wanted to go by anytime, you're more than welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know if you want to do a joint site walk or just your own drive-bys.
I think where the site is so small, I think we can just do individuals with the applicant's permission.
Yep, no, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what
if you
number,
want to get out and
Dolly?
walk around, I mean, I don't see any issues with that at all.
Sorry, what number, Dolly, is this?
It's number 3, so the house beside it is on Front's Goldsmith.
Oh, is this the little yellow house, like on the left, as you're coming off of Goldsmith Street?
No, it's on the right. I would have said it was red.
Red.
Concrete walls on either side from the other septic system.
Yes. So there's a concrete wall down this side here, and there's a concrete wall on the other side.
Okay.
All right.
I just have 2 more pieces of information that would be helpful to know either now or later. Are you taking, doesn't look like many trees are coming down, at least they're not marked on the map. And then the other question is regarding, it looks like the elevation of the driveway will be drained towards the road. And so I'm wondering if that will be, how that will be controlled, or if it's just going to run off into the road and then like across the wetlands.
Yeah, I think because of everything, it's extremely flat in here. The driveway pretty much runs down the water runs pretty much down the driveway now.
Yep.
So it'll do the same.
Okay. I was thinking,
Don't
don't
think
our
this-
stormwater regulations require all stormwater to be retained on site?
For single-family home, they don't apply.
Okay.
Except for under the bylaw,
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
more than, was it 1,000 square feet or 10%, which this is not having.
Yep.
There won't be many trees coming down. I'm just looking. I thought we had them all okay. So we've got these 2 small trees here. The rest of the lot's all pretty much open. There's a
Yeah,
couple-
I'm looking at an aerial
couple
now.
of vines and stuff outside the buffer here. I think they'll probably stay.
Yeah, even those 2 small ones are more shrub-like than trees.
Yes. Yeah, they're a couple inches in diameter, if I remember right.
Okay.
And over in this area here, it's all wide open.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So this will be continued to when? The 16th of November? Is that what you got, Amy?
Does that work, Kevin? 2 weeks?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All righty.
Okay, guess we gotta move along.
All right, thank you.
Continued discussion, 5 Scott Road, enforcement order and order of conditions, Mass DE file number 204-907. Haven't seen as built yet. Theoretically, he will have.
Those are my comments again.
Okay. I guess I'm reading the wrong thing.
Yep. I don't think I saw Matt come in.
Yeah, I'm here.
There he is. There he is.
Amy, did you get the email I sent you with the as-built this afternoon?
I saw it. I haven't done anything with it.
Then is it okay if I share screen?
Please.
So Matt, just as a reminder, so information that comes in this late, a lot of times has not been reviewed. So for future submittals, they need to be in days ahead of the meeting.
No, and I understand, and I apologize. Unfortunately, my surveyor had been quarantined for a couple of weeks, so he got delayed and just finished up everything. As a matter of fact, I'm just finished. I just quarantined, and I'll be finished up on that on Wednesday. So it's been a little bit of a interesting few weeks, to say the least. But yeah, I apologize for that. I usually get them in earlier, but I wanted to make sure that you guys at least had it for tonight because I didn't want to let 2 meetings go by without you guys having nothing.
So
But
if
the
you,
as,
if you want to go over it, but we don't have it, so Amy might has it. So if you want to give a brief synopsis of what you submitted, that would be great.
absolutely. And then, I'll be back the next meeting. You guys can go over it. And if you have any questions, obviously be more than happy to answer. So let me just pull it up on the screen. I got to find it first. So if you could bear with me just for 1 minute, I'm going to go back to it. There we go. And this file. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep. Just came up.
Yep.
Okay, so what we have here, and maybe I'll just zoom out a little bit so you can at least see this. This plan has basically two different panels to it. One was the pre-existing conditions panel. Yes?
I'm sorry, excuse me. Is it supposed to be sideways? Is that your intent?
I'll
It's
switch
fine
it over.
if it is. I just was wondering before we got too far. I can tilt my head.
No, actually, it's better this way. Thank you for pointing that out. You can see on the panel on the left is the pre-existing conditions. The panel on the right is post initial replication elevation construction elevations. And what it shows is that the area for replication or / restoration has been brought back to pre-existing conditions. I did spread the seed down, I want to say it was about a month ago. I had gone back and spread a couple of different coats on it and raked them in just to make sure everything was in plentiful supply. As of about 2.5 weeks ago, before the cooler weather came in, which was the last time I was able to get on the site before I got quarantined, there was some growth starting to germinate. It's not anything dramatic yet, but I'm still anticipating that by the time early spring comes around, you should see a really good growth out here. And as I had stated previously, I always have stock of seed, so any area that's necessary to reseed, I can get down right away and do. But at this point, I wanted to make sure you guys had the plants today. Despite the obstacles we had, I didn't want to let any more time go by so you guys would be able to examine the plant.
So, Matt, have you had a chance then to review the survey? Like, are you satisfied? Can you kind of talk about that a bit? I mean, we obviously, as we just discussed, need time to review and, to look at the elevations, but is there, are you?
No, I'm very satisfied with the survey. I'm satisfied with the job that was done on getting the soils out and reestablishing the hydric conditions. It actually wound up being a lot easier to do than I initially anticipated. The only correction, as you probably may recall, the last time I was here with you guys, was that there were a couple of areas, that were dug a little bit deep, but I had and there were some areas over on I'm pointing my cursor up here that needed to be dug down more. That soil, which essentially was material that was used from raking the bottom of the pond, which is already hydric to begin with, I had moved over in this area, which was dug a little bit too deep and had the elevation restored to where it was supposed to be. And it was this area and this area especially that I wanted the surveyor to confirm. And he confirmed that for me. I reviewed the elevations with him and it looked like it was actually a very good job.
So have you been on, you said you haven't been out on site for the last couple of weeks?
I haven't been out of my house in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Have you,
although my yard looks good.
Sure. Have you received any pictures of the site? Do you know how it's done in the last few rainstorms or any of that?
I haven't received any pictures, but from what I have been told by both the surveyor who went out on site to do shots and my client, that the soils are intact. None of the areas have washed out. There's been no gullying, no erosion. Everything is still very tight. I get off of quarantine on Wednesday after the snowstorm we had this weekend. I want to go down, check out the erosion protection, make sure they're in good condition. But when I confirm the condition, I can send an email to Amy on that to let her know everything is in good shape. I can send her some extra pictures if you like. I mean, just that's all I can do at this point. I'm just patiently waiting to be able to go farther than the end of my driveway.
Okay.
Matt, how did invasive removal go? What extent were you able to, I think the last time we talked, you had started to bag some of it, but I don't know.
I haven't been able to do too much, again, because of the limitations of what's been going on between the weather, my quarantine, but I am going to get back to it. Some of it's, what I'm doing is I'm bagging the top and spading it to get the root ball out. But yeah, that will be going a little bit faster now that I'll be back on my feet. It's been a little frustrating, guys. I'm sorry if I seem a little off.
I guess you'll be waiting to hear back from you after you get off the quarantine and be back at it on November 16th. Would that be okay, Amy?
Yep. That work for you, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Amy, I should also be having another notice of intent for you for a septic system and wall replacement coming in shortly.
No more filings. No more filings.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe. Have a great night.
You too.
All right, good night.
Take care.
Public hearing notice of intent, 80 Air Road, R15-210, Mass D file number 204-9 something, construction of a new silo, restoration of the railroad siding, construction of rail car storage area, and 3 new groundwater monitoring wells. Somebody gonna speak to that?
He's here to take it over.
Kevin Mark from David Ross Associates. So the project, like you mentioned, is at 80 Air Road. It's the Middlesex Materials property. It's going on, the project is going on in the back of the property, kind of southwest corner of it, back behind some of their existing buildings back in the site.
You can share. Do you have your map up or locus that you can share?
Well, let me see.
Amy, is this where we redid the silos on the left where the Poseidon, everything is there?
Yeah, and the refurbished track siding.
This is the concrete plant.
Yeah.
Yes, on the left that we had to do all those site walks for.
They took the old silos down and put up new.
I thought this was long done.
They're putting more in, Carl.
Oh.
No, I don't think the project has changed. Well, Kevin can tell us.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So it might seem familiar because back in 2016, it was brought before the commission, again, for work within just the buffer zone. There was originally, I think, 11 silos in place there, and even further down to the page, a little bit to the south. The project back in 2016 was proposing to take those down and construct the rail siding that you see, as well as a concrete batch plant. And as you can see, they took the silos down as permitted, but they never actually constructed anything there. And so they're looking now to construct, you can see the 2 cement transfer silos, truck scale, and just a cargo container for some of the mechanical equipment and electrical equipment that goes with that, as well as they want to keep in the permitting for the future rail siding.
You mind pointing at the, whoa.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys
Can you
can
point
see.
at those features? It's hard to see, but yeah, they're just small. So if you could point at them, that would be helpful.
Yeah, can you guys see the cursor on there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so those so the previous cement silos were in this area where our project is now. It's all currently paved today. They have trucks coming in and out through here all the time. So like I said, the silos were originally here. The original project in 2016 proposed to take those down, which they did, and construct, I believe it was, I think they were proposing to construct 3 silos in their place back in 2016, which obviously they never did. They just left it empty. And so they're hoping to now, like I said, construct those 2 temporary cement transfer silos, put a shipping container for some of the electrical and mechanical equipment, and then have a truck scale. The intent is to have trucks access the site down this left access way, which is already paved and used on a regular basis. Pull onto the truck scale, they'll get loaded up with cement, and then they'll exit the property to wherever they need to go.
Kevin, was the scale on the original filing?
Sorry, what was that?
Was the scale on the original filing?
No, they were proposing.
So I think it might be helpful because we have some new commissioners is to
Sure.
tell, I know you're giving a history of what was proposed, but what is new? So what are we changing on what was approved in 2016?
Yeah, so what was approved was, I believe, the construction of the three new silos, storage silos for the cement. And so what's different from then to now is instead of those 3 silos going up, they're looking to put 2 with a smaller footprint, 2 silos with the cargo container and the truck scale. So instead of 3 silos, it's 2 with the extra equipment. The area it's in today it's all paved. They use it for trucking on a regular basis. There's stuff moving in and out of there all the time.
How is the going on the access road on the left? I know we had concerns when that road was redone as the water comes down. How are you commented that there's a lot of trucks coming in and out and coming down that lane on the left. How is that going with the drainage?
To be honest, I'm not sure. We were, I don't know how heavily it's used, to be honest. I just know it's developed and trucks use it to get back into the site. I'm not sure exactly what the drainage is over there, but I know there's, water quality swales and some catch basins along this bottom edge.
And have those been maintained? Do we have records, the maintenance records for O&Ms?
I'm not sure.
They have been doing, Middlesex has been doing their routine reporting. Although frankly, I have not been out there in at least a year.
Yeah, they should be submitting reports, like monthly inspections and at least quarterly sampling, I would imagine, for their industrial general stormwater permit or NIPD's permit. So we could get an idea of how the stormwater is being handled on site by looking at those. Do the silos, will they have like bag houses, or will they need to be hosed down or any of that? Like or do they just get, it looks like there's no roof on them. So how do they load it? Like, what's the mechanism for loading the truck?
Yes, so they're silos. They're totally enclosed. They have dust collection filters up on the top to, prevent dust from escaping. And then you can kind of see there's these two little things coming out of them. They're just conveyor belts that take it from the bottom of the silos, ramp it up, and then it comes down into the trucks, into the the top of the truck to transfer from the silos. So it's using a conveyor system. And like I said, it has the dust control ventilation equipment on the top of the silos to help cut that down.
So is there a roof over the conveyors too?
No, those are enclosed. Everything's enclosed. So the silos are totally enclosed themselves. And then, like I said, the conveyors come out the bottom, and those are self-enclosed as well, right into the chute that comes down, just a tube into the truck.
So is it going to another spot to pick up the sand and crushed stone?
I assume so. I don't know if my client's on or not. If he could chime in if he's here, but I believe they take the cement and they'll bring it to other batch plants to get mixed in with the sand and aggregate as needed. Whoever's ordering the mixes.
They can do that right now. They have sand and crushed stone there now.
So this is for distribution. They're taking the cement in and I believe sending it to other plants. I forgot to mention, also part of the project, the Littleton Water Department chimed in. They wanted us to add in a number of groundwater monitoring wells. Some of them were damaged over the years. And so we've also included in this installing or revamping, kind of updating some of the ones that are already out there. And so you can see those on there as well. There's one over here that's existing that was in good shape. And then there's one here, one here, one here, and another one up here. And then a fifth one down here that are either going to be totally replaced or rebuilt.
Where
So what you're saying is these towers are just going to be a storage unit to be taken someplace else. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. They just take the cement in and then distribute it out to their clients from there to use in their concrete batch plants.
So this is just going to be kind of like a depot.
Yeah, I believe so.
How deep are the monitoring wells?
I think however deep they need to go to get into the groundwater. I think we had the Littleton well specs sent over and our client has those and they're going to construct them in compliance with those. I assume it's really not too deep since groundwater probably isn't too deep, but
okay.
I think the water department will chime in on that.
Is there concerns with groundwater on the site already, or is this just because the town is curious?
I think there's definitely potential for concern, for sure.
Yeah,
my understanding is that the water department was monitoring them for a while and then kind of stopped that, and they're taking this opportunity to replace the wells so that they can get back to monitoring the groundwater.
I guess it depends on what they're trying to look for, Julia, in depth, right? I mean, just going into the water table will only get you so much depending on what they're hoping to find or anticipating to find.
Yeah. So the water
they're going to work with the water department to construct those, per their requirements, what they need to get out of it.
So Amy, can we ask the water department if they have any results for these wells?
Yeah, they do send me sampling results, which I'm frankly not entirely sure what to do with, but they have them all. So I can get them. Yeah.
Okay. And I think it would be helpful, Kevin. I mean, there's no doubt that this facility would have an industrial stormwater SWIP. And so I think it would be helpful to look at some of the inspection records. They should be doing monthly inspections at a minimum, as well as likely quarterly sampling. So it'd be useful to look at that, maybe over the last like 2 years or so, just to get a better idea of O&M. And it seems like maybe a site visit would be helpful.
Julie, do you want Kevin to put together a summary of that timeline that you just presented? Like some type of graph or analytics that you could look at?
So each month they should just be doing inspections. So if he can, if they can submit copies of, maybe the last 2 years to Amy, that would be helpful. One of the concerns with concrete is you can get very, very, very high pH. And so I think that's something we want to look at. I've had experience with facilities that, where, with concrete runoff, and the pH has been like 12 in outfalls. And so I just think it's something that, that we should take a look at, particularly if we're going to have another operation within the buffer zone and within the riverfront. It's something that we should take a look at, because dust collection is not perfect. Maintenance is not perfect. I've seen plenty of these units, blow out or have a O-ring or gasket failure, through nobody's fault. It just tends to happen. So I think we should look at, what's existing on site as part of evaluating, adding more operations within the buffer zone and the riverfront, just to make sure we're covering all our bases. If there's other O&M we need to discuss type of thing, I'd like to be able to do that.
So I know there's an O&M in place, obviously, on the site. I know in 2016, with the proposed project then, it was between the water quality swales, the water quality units, the detention basins, all the existing stormwater quality infrastructure in place. It was deemed to be acceptable and adequate then. My site visit, I guess it was a month or two ago, I checked that stuff out and it looked like it was all still there and functioning about how it should be. But yeah, we can definitely try and find those SWIP records and maintenance records. I believe they would have been required to submit them to the town over the years, correct? So
no, I don't know, unless the order conditions said it. I'm not really sure. Back in 2016, I think we asked for them now, but it's an EPA permit. Like this.
Yeah, I don't know if they've been submitting to EPA. I do get them, and have for years. I'm not sure how complete it is. But like I said, I've been on the site recently. So I think a site walk's probably a pretty good idea.
I don't see the culvert over here that goes under the tracks. And this doesn't show the second set of tracks that have been put in either.
Sorry, for what?
This doesn't show the second set of tracks that has been put in. There were two, for a long time, there was just one set of tracks, and there was two sets of tracks many years ago, and the railroad took them out, took one set out. But your sketch here does not show the second set of tracks.
Oh, there's a second row down along this corridor.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's there now.
Kevin, when was the last time you were out on site?
I was out there, I think it was,
You don't have to be specific. I was just curious how often.
yeah, my memory's been kind of foggy lately. End of September 30th.
Okay.
And that the purpose of that one was more, we were looking at the condition and locations of those groundwater monitoring wells. That was the primary focus of that, just to see what condition those were in. But
So Amy, how would you like to proceed? Obviously, we need to set up a site walk. I think this is one that needs to be kind of escorted, and if anything needs to be staked out as well. I'm assuming all the wetlands flags are obliterated by now.
And they were extremely hard to find. It's really dense in there.
yeah,
But it was a fairly obvious drop off, if I remember.
Yep.
And Kevin, have the proposed rail line, the spur, that hasn't changed at all, has it?
no, that's the same as it was all along. They just want to keep that in there so that they can construct it when the time comes.
And so the old filing, whose number I can't remember, will need a certificate of compliance on it. And obviously work would not have done, and then be replaced by this new notice of intent.
What did they do for work under the old order conditions?
Under the old order, the work would have been, I believe, just that they completed, actually, I believe, was just the demolition of the old silos that were in that area.
And kind of formalizing that access road, I think.
Right. I thought that there was some stormwater that we addressed in that. So that's why, and we can look at that when we're on site, but I thought a part of that first filing, we addressed that stormwater.
I believe they put up a new batching plant and put a roof on the batching building with the sand and the gravel. That was changed to an order of conditions.
Right. So I think when we're out on site to kind of look at what was proposed in the original filing, what was completed, what wasn't done. So Kevin, if you have a chance to look at that ahead of time, that would be great.
Sure.
You want to set up a site walk now, or do you want to?
Kevin, how long do you need to kind of get ready for us to come out on a site walk? Like the proposed areas for the monitoring wells are all allocated?
What do you mean by allocated there?
Well, like the stake in the ground, so you're able to see it?
No, we haven't staked anything out yet. I think we were looking for approval first before that, but we can I can definitely get out there and put some stakes in the ground, or, some of them are, for the well locations, some of them are just being repaired, so we can take a look at those locations, and then the new ones would be pretty easy to find, but I can get out there ahead of time and stake that out so we can find them pretty easily. Other ones are in the middle of paved areas. We're not going to be able to stake those out.
You could mark them on the paper, can't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your time frame, Kevin? It takes a bit for us all to kind of get together. We'd like to try and do one site walk versus multiple.
Yeah, I'd have to check with my client and see, just run it by them first. When I was out there, I had somebody walk me around. So I think it would probably just be best to figure it out offline, if that's okay with you, Amy.
Yeah, well, and it's dark early now, so that's going to be a challenge too.
Okay.
So, well, I guess we'll just, Kevin, do you want to just go ahead and keep it moving and just extend it to the next hearing? see what your client says, go from there.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, this is Carl. There was a fellow from Middlesex that kind of led us around. He was very, I thought he was really good. I don't remember the guy's
I
name.
was just going to ask you about that. He was amazing. He'd been there since the beginning, practically.
Yes.
If the same person I'm thinking of, he has left, and getting the monitoring reports from Igor Nevet, something like that, who I don't think I've actually met, but.
Okay. The gentleman that escorted me around was Wayne Tarr.
Oh, Wayne. Okay, yeah.
I believe he's the general manager of the property.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it'll probably be him out there as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, I guess we've got to move along. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time and input, and we'll set that up as soon as we can.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
8:30, public meeting, request for determination of applicability for New England Power Company for L138 structure, IT replacement project, R19-10, relocate existing structures. Is somebody going to speak to that?
Good evening. My name is Teresa Portante with BSC Group here on behalf of New England Power. So would you like me to share my screen?
Please.
I can share the plan. All right, hold on.
Is the spooktacular chemist with you?
No. Is that a participant? Sorry, my screen's blocking the names. Okay. Can everybody see the plan okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So the proposed work is on the L138 transmission line, specifically the structures that support the tap into the municipal substation located here. So just to give you a layout of how the transmission lines are located, we've got a large transmission line corridor here that contains both the L and the L138 and the K137 transmission lines. And these structures here, you can see there's multiple structures located. This is where these structures tap into this overhead transmission and then enter into the substation here. There are several structures as part of these taps for both the K and the L line that are in poor condition. And specifically the T1 structure on the L138 line is in a very congested location. So what they're proposing to do is relocate the structure 40 feet within the buffer zone, closer to the edge of the access road. And this is going to make it easier to access the structure. The structure is currently a wood pole H-frame structure, and they're proposing to replace it with a steel structure. Again, it will be direct embedded into the ground, so no foundations are being proposed to support the structure. And all the work will be located within the buffer zone. Are there any questions?
When you say buffer zone, are you within the 100-foot buffer or 50-foot? Where
the structure is being relocated right on the edge of the 50, just to the outside of the 50. So within the outer 50 feet of the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay.
Do you have a map that shows more of the wetlands and where the structure location is?
So
you can zoom in a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yep. Can you see that better?
When was the wetlands flagged?
The wetlands were flagged early. Well, it's been flagged earlier this season. they were reflushed. This wetland's been flagged multiple times for multiple projects within this right of way.
So they were flagged during the drought period?
Hold on, let me scroll up to the date in the filing.
What is the access road like? Is it paved? Is it dirt?
It's gravel.
Gravel, okay.
June 2020.
Oh, okay.
And how far into the 50-foot no disturb zone does that work envelope go? Because it looks like it goes back a good distance.
Yep, so they would be staging equipment in here, but there's no grading proposed. This is all pretty flat.
Oh, there isn't. Okay.
No.
You're not actually in the wetland, you're on good solid footing?
Correct. Yep. All the work will be within the upland area.
And what kind of things would be staged within that 50-foot area?
In terms of equipment? They would be using bucket trucks and a piece of equipment that has an auger on it to do the drill for the pole locations.
How many poles are being added or changed?
There's one pole being relocated outside of its existing location, and then there's additional maintenance activities going on where they're just replacing structures in their existing locations and replacing a crossarm in one of the structures.
So you're only replacing one structure and working on others?
What is being submitted under the RDA is the relocation of a structure because it's being moved greater, a good distance from its existing location within the buffer zone. So it's being relocated 40 feet.
Okay.
And that's this. So this pink is its existing location, and then this yellow is its proposed location.
So Teresa, you said you're not doing any grading. So does that mean you're not going to move any, there's no fill being moved or anything like that?
No.
And then what about the vegetation clearance and like any invasive plant species that might be cut down? And then, the concern is that they'll be moved somewhere, just kind of spread the problem around.
So they would be mowing the area, mowing the work pad, similar to what they do during their, regular maintenance, vegetative maintenance along the right of way in terms of seed dispersal. I mean, for this specific location, there are certainly invasive species present within, this whole area within the right of way corridor.
So so I would imagine then for the building, there needs to be more clearing, correct?
They would mow.
They would mow it down and then, okay.
And then they would be allowed to revegetate after construction and then maintained as they do regularly under their maintenance program.
So where does the mowed material go? Does it just get mowed and then kind of left mulched in place type of thing? Or does it get moved off site?
They wouldn't need to take it off site. It would remain on site.
Okay.
Do you have any photos of?
Yes.
Okay.
This is what it looks like. So these are the two tap structures. This is structure 1, the one that's going to be relocated. And then this is a view of the approximate location of where it will be relocated to. You can see this is in the background is the substation. So it's largely herbaceous vegetation within the right-of-way in this section. Any other questions?
Jim, you want to ask for a motion?
Yes. Somebody want to make a motion to issue a notice termination of applicability to New England Power Company for replacement of structures and relocation? Somebody want to
So
make?
I'll make a motion. Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion that we issue a -3 determination for the filing. Mass DEP file number.
R1910.
I don't
No,
have
our-
anything in
our-
front
our
of me
name-
here.
It's an
Sorry.
RDA, so there's no number.
Andrew, just so you know, you were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, that's right. So I'll just let that. Oh, am I? Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
I second Andrew's motion.
Okay, Carl Melberg, aye. Jim Pickard,
James Pickard, aye.
Kyle Maxfield,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew Samarco,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Sarah Seward,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Julie Rupp,
Julie Rupp, aye.
unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Public hearing notice of intent, 199 Wickham Avenue, Smith property, 13-5, 6, 7, and 8. Mass DEP file number 204-9 something. Habitat improvement of controlled reduced abundance of invasive oriented bittersweet by cut stump spot herbicide foliar treatment with Garlon 4 Ultra and Escort XP. Somebody want to speak to this?
Good evening. I'm Laura Mattei. I'm the Director of Stewardship with Sudbury Valley Trustees. Here with me this evening are Karen Paquin, who's the President of our Board of Directors, and Hotsa Winya is also joining us. He's the Environmental Chemist with the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources. I will give a short presentation of our project and then would be happy to answer questions. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me just get this into, there we go. So as you know, the Smith Conservation Land has outstanding conservation values. It hosts multiple habitats. It's part of an important corridor of habitat running north and south through the region. And it's regionally significant. Also, it's part of the high priority areas of Biomap 2. Those are statewide designated areas that are important for protection and management. The property is habitat for a state listed rare turtle and hosts 3 vernal pools, high quality vernal pools. And you should have received a letter from the Massachusetts Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program that approves of this management plan as well. Unfortunately, in spite of the great conservation values on this property, half of it, so 26 acres of the 54 acres, are significantly compromised by invasive plants, especially Oriental bittersweet. So our goals for our project are to reduce the abundance and cover of the Oriental bittersweet, to increase the abundance and diversity of native plants and trees, which would increase the native insect and pollinator diversity, would improve food abundance for breeding birds, would improve aesthetics and eliminate safety hazards, particularly from the dying red pine stand. And it would also strengthen the forest health in light of changing climate. One of the important recommendations for good long-term health is to reduce the amount of invasive plants. So I'd like to give you an overview of the project map and then go into some details of the project, and I'll bring the map up again. So what you see here, this is the Whitcomb Avenue running through here. The red lines are the SVT property boundaries. The dots with the circles around them are the locations of the water wells of our neighbors that abut the property. And that shows a 100-foot buffer around those wells as recommended by the Board of Health. Some of the neighbors have asked if we'd expand that by 25 feet, which we're happy to do. We've divided the area into management units. So over here is, well, actually, let me point out first, this is where we delineated the wetland boundaries. That was performed by a wetland scientist. So to the east here, this is the boundary of the Beaver Brook marshes. And the second blue line is the 100-foot buffer to those wetlands. And then to the west, the boundary of the vernal pool wetlands, and then again, the 100-foot buffer to those wetlands. So then the management units illustrated here are unit 1 is the red pine stand, the one that's been dying out and is a particular concern. Number 2 over in this area here is primarily European tamarack plantation. 3 is a mix of planted Norway spruce and some old field and some other trees mixed in there. 5 down here is the old field area. What I've outlined in 5 is the area that has more trees and shrubs with more bittersweet growing within them. 4 to the west of Whitcomb Avenue is the old field area and some trees. The other areas in here are not marked as management units, such as in this area here are residential buffer areas for mechanical only treatment. And there's also another one down here as well. And we'll also be using mechanical only along the border of the western border of the property. So initially we're planning to treat 12 acres. So that would be the red pine stand, the European tamarack, and larch, and the patches of large vines in the old field area. What this would entail is in the fall, late November into December, a cut stump and paint herbicide treatment of the bittersweet vines. The following summer, we would treat the low growing leaves with a backpack sprayer. These treatments will be performed by certified applicators who have experience working in natural areas. The following 2 summers, we would be doing spot treatments on any regrowth. In between that, we can do manual pulling of seedlings as a way to reduce the need for herbicides, but we will need to do those treatments. In the mechanical control areas, a very high priority for us is along that western border where we have the intact forests that have not yet been invaded by invasive plants, to really work those repeatedly with manual control to prevent the spread of invasives in that direction. next to residential areas and in the water well buffer areas, we'll be using mechanical only control. We'll try to use volunteer work days and groups as feasible. There's a potential to do use some goats for grazing as well. We are considering using some potential heavy machinery to work some of the areas that have a combination of woody shrubs, trees, and bittersweet, just as a way to make it mowable. It wouldn't necessarily control the bittersweet, but it might make it more manageable and prevent the bittersweet from going to seed, and that would be primarily to the south. And as always, we adapt our management as needed as we go. So bringing up this map again, so the areas that we would start with are the Red Pine Stand Unit 1, the European Tamarack Unit 2, and some areas of the old field where there are larger vines. That totals about 12 acres. And using our GIS, I estimated the amount of area within the 100-foot buffer of the wetlands to be about 4 acres. So what does this look like? The contractor would use a combination of Garlon 4 Ultra, which is triclopyr is the active ingredient, and Excort XP, metsulfuron methyl is the active ingredient. And these are approved for sensitive areas. The first treatment would be using chainsaws to cut the stump, and then they would use this smaller spray squirt bottle to directly target the cut stump immediately after cutting it. The follow-up treatment is the photo on the right. They're using battery-operated backpack sprayers, which allow them to adjust the volume and pressure and direct the spray onto the target plant, in this case, the bittersweet leaves. And then I just wanted to say a little bit more about the red pine stand, because that is what we do need to remove those red pines because they are dying. But we need to wait probably 3 years until we have a decent amount of control in the bittersweet, because if we remove it immediately, the bittersweet, the disturbance will really cause that to go crazy. We will use a native seed mix to establish good initial cover in those open areas. We'll be monitoring that to see what vegetation is coming back. And our ultimate goal would be to establish a native hardwood forest. So I'll bring the map back up so that you can keep it as a reference, and I'm happy to take questions.
What is causing the red pine stand to die?
So red pines are not native to this region of the United States, and they have a short life. They start to get diseased and they just start dying off. So that's pretty common for that to happen.
Does the red pine make the soil more acidic, so making it difficult to reestablish, native hardwoods or other growth?
Well, that's a good question. It could be considered similar to a pine, a conifer stand as well. I think that the type of forest that tends to influence that more would be more like a hemlock, where it's very dense and it doesn't allow as much different types of vegetation to grow.
Yeah, that photo was striking of the dying red pines full of bittersweet. It was a lot of bittersweet. So I know there's been a lot of, reevaluation on SVT's part and, outreach with neighbors, and, I've reviewed all the material that's gone out, and I was wondering if you could kind of go over why herbicides are necessary. Why can't you do 100% mechanical?
Sure. So bittersweet is known to be very difficult to control. It has a very fibrous networking root system. So if you want to control it manually, you would need to be able to get the entire root system out of the ground. If you're doing that in your backyard or, in a smaller area, you might have a chance of doing that. Over this larger area, we just don't think that's feasible. The other thing, there was the from DeRosa who had given us an estimate for whole plant removal. So they're talking about going in and trying to dig up some of the topsoil to get out the root systems, which is very disruptive. It's also very expensive. The one example I know of in Vermont, I think it was, where they did something like that. They did have a lot of regrowth of bittersweet that they then herbicided. So doing mechanical control is just not feasible. Not at this scale.
I have a comment on that, actually. There are numerous examples of bittersweet being controlled mechanically.
I'm sorry, who is this?
I'm sorry, my name is Jesse Walsh. I live at 189 Whitcomb Ave.
So Jim, I don't know if you want to take comments from the public yet, or keep with the Conservation Commission, or how you want to.
I think we ought to let the Conservation Commission's members have their say first.
This is Anna. I was wondering, your management area 1 does intrude into that well's protection area. Is that 100
Yes.
foot, 100 or 400 foot protection area? Is 100 or 400?
It's 100 feet.
100 feet. So is that advisable? I mean, I would think that
We will work around that zone.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So your drawing isn't quite accurate to where.
Yeah, I can fix that.
Okay.
Is that, you mentioned going out to 125 feet. Is it for all the circles or just certain ones?
I don't actually remember who requested that, but we could certainly do it for all of them.
Okay. And I'm just wondering too, in that area 1, that's where the red pines were. And I have a very small amount of bittersweet in the woods behind my house, and I do pull it, and it's impossible to get all the roots. But I'm wondering if in this area, if maybe some of that heavy equipment might be appropriate in that well radius, to get, I'm just thinking of.
I will take a closer look at exactly
if
what's
there's
the
access.
well radius.
Okay.
To see what will work best there.
Okay.
Because
Laura?
definitely there's going to be some areas there where we will have to do mechanical only.
Okay.
There is one other well there as well. You can see that there's 2 houses. Only one of the wells
Yes.
is shown. That the Cottonham
Yes.
well is not currently being shown.
There are 2 wells in the same right next to each other there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
I
exactly where
spoke
the
to
wells were.
Dale, and he said that his is right next to it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, because it's a public meeting, I need to be careful. I know who's talking when, so I can keep minutes. So
Yes, that was Joseph Gallagher. I'm one of the abutters on the northeast side of parcel 1.
thank you.
So I noticed in your photos of the people applying the herbicides, nobody's wearing PPE. Is that a stock photo? Will people need PPE? And then like it looked like in your schedule, you were going to have herbicide applications, and then, volunteer groups go out to pull. And so, is that, I'm assuming, or I guess my question is, was that a stock photo with no PPE? And, I'm assuming some thought was given into time intervals when folks can go pull by hand after herbicides have been sprayed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is not a stock photo. That is the way they do the treatment. And the volunteers would be primarily working in areas where they're not applying any herbicides. And then for when they would be going in to look for seedlings, it would be well in between any applications. And typically, within 24 hours, the herbicide has been absorbed by the plants.
Okay. So, and I know herbicides are expensive. So in addition to following best practices for use of chemicals, can you talk a little bit about your, the application methods and, how you ensure you don't do overspray, or, what volume might come out so you can ensure, targeted application, versus having, spray go all over the place? Like, will you avoid windy days, for example, or, any of that?
Yeah, the certified applicators would be able to answer that for you in detail. I know that they're able to adjust the pressure on the backpack sprays, for example, and they're not allowed to apply if there's winds over 10 miles per hour. They also will not apply before or during a rain event.
And then will you notify abutters? I don't know if, I'm just thinking about, or even folks who wanting to recreate on the land.
Yes.
Signs to be posted, and
we will be, I have an email list for neighbors that I can let them know when the work will be occurring. And we do typically post the trailhead and trails to let people know that that activity is occurring.
So I have another, I don't know if maybe the chemist might weigh in. So I know the triclopyr, it seems to degrade into something called TCP. And I was wondering if maybe someone could speak to the degradation products and if those are mobile, where those might go, and just concerns. It looks like you're not spraying on the wetlands. It's the buffer zone. So I'm just, I guess, curious about daughter products, breakdown products, and mobility in the environment.
Yes, Hotsavania here with MNAR. That is something, the degradation of herbicides into daughter products that then subsequently degrade into smaller compounds is something that is being evaluated when these herbicides are reviewed, and the risk assessments do include these breakdown products. They are basically, if those compounds are found to be toxic, they will be considered as part of the total load into the system. And so these breakdown products can be mobile too, as the parent compound to some extent is also. However, they do ultimately break down into smaller compounds. Again, it is being considered in the overall risk assessment for potential leaching to groundwater, and the total input into the system includes the degradates also, as well as the parent compound. So it is part of the overall evaluation that has been done.
And so then is the on-label use of the herbicide, then, like, I guess, does SVT or the certified applicators, do they do calculations for, like, for example, the maximum amount of volume per acreage? Is that some, like, records, or do they keep records or do calculations?
Yeah, that is something a certified applicator, or any applicator has to follow the label. The label is law. The label has very detailed instructions in terms of the maximum application rate, or the maximum application rate that could be used, or in many situations you don't even need to go to the maximum rate. But that is all something that the applicators consider, and they keep records of the amount of material that has been applied to a given site, and they keep track of the amount and make sure that they don't exceed label rates. And the label rates by themselves have been set to a certain level that if they are used at that maximum level, they are still being protective of unreasonable risks to the environment and to human health.
From what I remember reading, the daughter product is pretty mobile in the groundwater. But I also listened to the previous presentation Laura gave, and there were detailed questions about the wells, etc. And I'm just wondering, because there was so much concern about the wells, that if you are going to go around that well with your area, if you could also be all down gradient of the wells, just make sure that it looks like some area of number one could be slightly up gradient of that well in its application, and maybe if you'd start the foliar application, you could maybe do the dabbing within that area, but the foliar spray maybe in the areas where it's not up gradient of the wells, though it is up gradient of the wetland though too. But
It's a pretty flat area, so could you say a little bit more about what you're thinking in terms of up gradient and down gradient exactly?
Well, it looks, I mean, from this map, it looks like you're on a groundwater divide. So you have wetlands to the west and wetlands to the east. And that you generally, the groundwater flows toward the lowest point. So it would be toward the wetland areas. And so say if you, in area one, if you started slightly to the east of like halfway into that area, and then to the east, then you would not, I would believe, would not be up gradient of the well. But it looked like if you go west of that well, west in area one, the very western area, may be up gradient of the well. Granted, I do not have any groundwater contouring or anything in this area, but in terms of where the wetlands are, that's what I would assume by that.
Yeah, this is Dale Cottenham, 172 Whitcomb Ave. I think your assessment is accurate based on my observations that water, if you will, does run towards the wetlands. So I think you had a good idea in terms of maybe minimizing the work closer to the well, and then focusing on areas where it wouldn't be possibly leaking into the well more, based on how the water flows.
And my understanding is that the wells are about 300 feet deep. Is that right?
It sounds right. I'm not entirely certain, but yeah.
Thanks.
Although they are 300 feet deep, potentially they might draw the water down. And it's hard to know how much of the surface groundwater will end up in the well without having a pump test or something like that, where when the well was put in initially, they would have done a pump test. But you know, where the area of influence is of that well, it's hard to tell.
Thank you.
I think, I mean, I think we need to be a little careful about, I'm very interested in public health, but the Department of Health really has jurisdiction over the wells. And so I'm happy to discuss groundwater and happy to advocate for wells as we typically would. I just want to, in this instance, I want to make sure we don't step on the toes of the Department of Health. And it sounds like you have spoken with them and they recommended these 100-foot buffers. I'm just wondering if you could just go through what your process with them looked like.
It was very simple, just that I knew that they were recommending a 100-foot buffer, and I tried to call Jim 2 other times recently, but he didn't return my calls.
Yeah, may I point out that these 100 feet buffers around these wells is actually exceeding the 50 foot setbacks that the regulations for rights of way require for these type of applications. So they are already double the setback value that the rights of way regulations use. And both these chemicals are both on the what Laura pointed out, they are on the sensitive area materials list. So they have been reviewed by Mass DEP and our agency. They have been approved by the pesticide board, where the Department of Public Health is also part of. So it's just something that I wanted to point out, that these restrictions are going beyond what the regulations already require.
Yeah, thanks. That's helpful. Yeah, and I just thought it was really important to distinguish that line, whereas we're discussing wells and buffers, that our jurisdiction, really is the wetlands, and the public health aspect of the private wells is, it frankly isn't. Although we, are educated about the environment and groundwater and that type of thing, but I just wanted to make that distinction.
No, that was a good point, Julie. I think that that was the most concern that the public had at the previous call. But I agree that, although, I have a healthy amount of skepticism in these areas where you've got plenty of instances, and that was brought up with the call too, plenty of instances where, the safety isn't 100% of these things. The estimates are not 100%, and the 100-foot buffer is a clear, bright line, but it's never clear and never bright. Usually it's amorphous. The zone of influence around a well is very amorphous. So I would think that it would be good to be on the side of caution with so many private wells in this area.
May I ask for a definition, please?
I would also, that you'd have to go for the chair, but I would also point out that most of that area is outside of the traditional area for the Conservation Commission. That blue line is the buffer zone.
So is that a 50-foot and 100-foot buffer, Amy, on that plan?
That's the 100-foot buffer.
So what is the extent of the yellow area? Is that on the wetland boundary?
I'm not sure.
Where your laser pointer is right now, what is that?
Yes, this is the wetland boundary.
Right. So you're starting from the wetland boundary.
Yes. Yes.
And Mr. Chair, you do have some questions from the public if you want to try to start working through those.
Yes, take a couple anyway.
Yes, may I ask for a definition, please? When we speak of the
who is speaking, please?
Sorry, Sandy Murray on Whitcomb.
Thank you.
169 Whitcomb. I needed to know about the 100 feet reference there. Is that 100 feet across the circumference, or is that 100 feet from the well outward? Because that would impact whether our Mr. Winja, is it, from MDAR, he was talking about 50 feet being great, but it's only 50 feet if it's 100 in circumference. So then an extra 25 would be much more protective.
So I don't know, wasn't totally sure, but the little blue dot in the middle is the location of the well.
Right.
And then I drew a 100-foot buffer around there.
Okay, so it's 200 feet across.
So the diameters, yeah.
Oh, right, yes.
There's 200, the radius is 100.
This is Jesse Walsh from 189 Whitcomb Ave. May I make a comment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the narrative about bittersweet, that bittersweet cannot be managed without herbicides, has been shown to be false. Bittersweet is not a magical plant. It can be pulled, cut, mowed, and regrowth can be pulled, cut, mowed, and then the plant is dead. So if the roots lose contact with the energy of the sun for long enough time, the plant will die. And I have had success on my own property, and neighbors have had success. There's documentation of Mike Bald managing 250 acres in South Burlington, Vermont, without any herbicides. The Housatonic Riverwalk has eradicated numerous invasives, including significant robust bittersweet growth without a drop of herbicide. And one argument made is that the manual removal isn't in the research, but none of the work I've mentioned above is in the research, and the research is generally funded directly or indirectly by the companies looking to sell products. So if there's no money to be made and no product to buy, there's generally no research. All of these chemical herbicides are basically presumed safe until proven dangerous. The universal trend is toward indisputable danger. If we were having this conversation about glyphosate, it would be considered very low risk, but Bayer is currently going to pay $10 billion to settle cancer lawsuits. And Bayer would not be willing to settle for such a sum without overwhelming evidence. And yet the EPA continues to find glyphosate very low risk. Clearly the research is a little behind. Lastly, permission to use chemicals in these wetlands will be permission for years and years to come, because the bittersweet it's growing up and down Beaver Brook, and the birds that eat the berries elsewhere are not going to hold it when they fly over SVT land. So the bittersweet will be recurring. So please deny this permission. This wetland is directly connected to Littleton Public Water Supply, and I don't think that we need any herbicide runoff to go with the already scary revelations of PFOAs in the drinking water.
May I make a comment in support of that statement? My name is Joanna Glennon, and I live at 25 Middle Street in Concord.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I completely agree with Jesse Walsh. During this time where we're all very much thrown back on our resources in the pandemic, and we can't go a lot of places. The thing that keeps us sane is to be able to go to these wonderful outdoor places. And, you go with your children and you really want to feel safe. And when I hear about the safe levels, I have to say that I worked for some of these companies that make these products. I worked for Union Carbide in Washington 25 years ago. I worked for Dow Chemical, and the process by which the safe level is determined is not one that anyone would feel really comfortable trusting their kids' lives to. And this stuff it moves, and we're all, in the back of our mind thinking, boy, are we going to be sitting here 10 years from now, realizing that we had an opportunity to make a really farsighted and courageous choice and maybe missed it. So I would I would personally like to see this done without the use of the chemicals.
I think we've probably heard enough comments. I'd like to hear what the board kind of thinks.
Well, I think there was one more comment. Maybe someone raised their
Yeah.
hand. If it's
My
not,
name is Noel Herman. Can you see me?
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Noel Herman.
Is that Carlo's iPad?
Oh, no, that would be me. Sorry. That's
That's what I was trying to.
Am I? I'm not sure. Am I up?
So I think I'm asking for a moment just to make a statement.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Noel, Noel, Herman, Herman. And I'd like to make a comment in support of the two previous comments against spraying. And so by way of introduction, I'm
really sorry, Noel. What's your address?
Okay, 189 High Street, High Street in the town of Acton.
Thank you.
So by way of introduction, I'm a one-person shop, and I have worked on 4-acre plots for a homeowner in Acton to remove the Asian bittersweet, and I've worked on a 6-acre plot in Acton called the Falkland. It's a heritage Falkland homestead, and they hired me. Their board of directors, it's a nonprofit. They hired me to do 6 acres of removal of their Asian bittersweet, and in both cases, neither wanted any spraying at all. And I guaranteed them that I would not spray at all. And most recently, I just finished a job for a resident of Littleton on Birch Street, and they also did not want any spraying at all. And so I want to really work hard at disagreeing with the presumption that, oh, Asian bittersweet, it's too hard to get it out of the ground. The roots are too intractable. It's just it's too much time to get it out. I have found that my approach is the following, and it's successful. I basically uproot the vines that I can by hand. The other ones I uproot by mechanical leverage using a shovel, or I plan to start using something called a puller bear. And just, I'll be brief, another minute or so. What I have found is I've been able to uproot many vines on those 6 and 4 and 1 acre lots by one person, just me alone, or with the son of the owner, the homeowner, who helped me as well. They did the actual painting or dabbing, since I do not have a pest app, and I don't need a pest app because I don't use pesticides or spraying. Anyway, so I uproot the roots, and I have found that every Asian bittersweet plant has anywhere from 1 to 3 offshoots, and they all travel along about up to a 15-foot radius, and they're all about 2 to 5 inches below the surface, so they're all easily reachable. And in fact, what I do is I unravel, or I cut down the vine to the ground, and then I with a trowel I unearth the up to 3 different vines, and then I use my hand to pull them out, and I just trail to the end, making sure I don't break it. I use leverage right over the plant, and I keep going outward as I move, and I'm able to get rid of those, so that in effect, the homeowner in Littleton asked me, "Oh, I hope you can come back and do the maintenance next year." And I said, you're not going to have maintenance. There is no maintenance, because you can see I've destroyed the plant, I've destroyed the roots, and you can't have a plant and have leaves and vines coming out of that. And the only 2 exceptions to that are, there's a seed bed, usually a bank of seeds that have resulted from the birds or the plant dropping their berries onto the ground. And so, but here's the maintenance. The maintenance is minimal. and that is that these are only sprouts that are going to come up. These are not heavy duty, invasive, heavy, plants that are vines that take, a man's work or a woman's work to remove them. It's just pulling out the little sprouts, or what's the word? What's the device? The shred. It's weed killer, weed whacker. Yeah, a weed whacker. That can cover a lot of areas. So here's what I'm going to wrap up here. My average fee is $1,000 per acre for removing moderately invasive bittersweet. I haven't seen Smith yet, but from your map, I can see, and what you've said, I can see that it's 25 acres, and that I've learned there's a plan that exists to spend $100,000 on the project. And at 1,000, that would be, with one person only, that would be 25,000. But with two people, it would be 50,000. But instead of it taking, per acre, I usually, it takes me working alone about 20 hours, depending on how infested it is. If it's extremely infested, it's obviously going to be longer. But in summary, a major benefit for my method of removing the roots of bittersweet is that it results in very little regrowth at all, and no need to spray vines that aren't there. The only two exceptions to this negligible growth, as I've mentioned, are the tiny shoots that spring from the invisible bank of seeds that arise from the falling berries. I love doing this work because I feel great joy when I can spring a tree from the scourge of bittersweet vines. And I'm the homeowner did put a reference of my work in next door, and so did the Acton, the Faulkner Heritage 6-acre historic homestead. They also put a reference to my work, and I'm sure the homeowner who has 4 acres would be glad to talk to the success of my work as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Noel, I have a question for you, Noel. The Faulkner area, when did you do that work?
I believe it was last year.
Okay.
Not this past summer, but the summer before. I worked for 40 hours. No, yeah. Let's see. I worked from 8 to 1 for, yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of the time in terms of when the work was done.
Yeah, it was last summer. And you're welcome to go look at the results. I'm sure that the board would welcome your visit to see that, in fact, where I pulled up roots, they are not there. There are no vines growing on those trees. And there's no need to spray. Thank you.
Amy, do you have familiarity with the Faulkner property? Is that okay? I wasn't sure if that was something that you would have seen. Okay.
Hi. If you have time, I think I see one more hand.
Yeah, that would be me, Kristen Ferrante. Is that me?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kristen Ferrante. I live at 200 Wickham Ave. I run an in-home daycare, and I have grandchildren who reside at my home. And for me, I worry for the health of the children at my daycare and for my grandchildren. These concerns are not without reason. Over the past year, we have urged the SVT to seek alternatives on the land that we hold dear that abuts our property. So we appreciate that SVT aims to control the invasive plants. Littleton has sought to be forward-looking with regards to land stewardship and sustainability, but I ask please vote to keep our water protected now and in the future, and to keep the chemicals out. Thank you.
About buffer zones or not?
I guess we need to decide, Amy, what direction you think we ought to go at this point?
I think there might still be hands raised out there, but
we've got to move on too.
You're also way over, yeah.
I think we need more information, to be honest. This is a really large area of spraying. And I'm just wondering if we can get the Department of Health or Board of Health to weigh in. I know they've got a lot of other things going on. I don't feel comfortable that we that it's appropriate for us to make that call. I am concerned that if we start spraying, there is a seed bed, and it's just going to be coming up anyway, so maintenance will be necessary. And so I'm just wondering if that piece is worth it, or if we can do, the cutting and dabbing. Seems like that would be a heck of a lot less mobile. And whereas the request is for, it just a very, very large area, I really would like our Board of Health to weigh in. And I would like, maybe some reevaluation of if we can, do some cutting and dabbing. So that's just kind of where I am.
We definitely are doing the cutting and dabbing.
Right. But can you
the follow up with the backpack spray is for the low regrowth, that the cut and dab doesn't work on the smaller stems.
Right. Yeah. No, I know the tiny stuff would need to be pulled or mowed or some other method.
The mowing would just increase the growth of the bittersweet.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
The problem I have at my, I can picture this because I have it under poison ivy vines. So I can't get all the roots. And so every year it sprouts, and every year I'm back pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. I'm not spraying at my house because it is small, but then, I don't know. I have some remaining concerns, and I'm not sure that we are I really think we need the Board of Health to weigh in.
I'm questioning how much jurisdiction we have outside the 100-foot buffer anyway.
Well, it's conservation land.
Yeah, but it's not ours. It's the Sudbury trustees.
Right. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Julie, but I just take it a step back into our jurisdiction, where I don't know that I'm comfortable not seeing mobility data, and I'm hearing all the talking about it, but I haven't actually seen some of this data. If we're talking about spraying this stuff right at the wetland boundary, and I mean, that's a little alarming to me that we're not, forget about a buffer zone, we're going right to the edge of the wetland. I mean, so I see that it's for an NOI. I assume there's a waiver included with this as well. Amy?
Yeah, there would need to be. And on the Board of Health, I can ask them, but I'm not sure what jurisdiction they have. I'm not sure what you'd be asking the Board of Health of, put it that way.
I guess
I think what we've proven tonight is that there are still some questions, and I think this is good feedback for SVT to see that we, I'm getting a sense that if we were asked to make a decision tonight, that I think that we would err if we all made a decision. So I agree that we should take the opportunity to try and seek other input for sure, but I think we've utilized a good conversation tonight, but in essence, where we have a full schedule, we really need to keep going at this time.
Yeah.
For other meetings.
I would like just to get some clarifications on what questions the commission's is looking to answer.
Commissioners, do you want to reestablish some of your concerns, and we can make this
as they apply to the buffer zone? I think I heard Kyle say he wanted to know about the mobility.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see I know what the parent compound is, but what that breaks down to, half-life type stuff. And I think this is probably all information you have, that I just don't know that I've.
So I don't, that's not something that I'm an expert in. That would be something that Hutza. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah. These chemicals have recently gone through what is known as a registration review by EPA, and so that is a comprehensive 7 to 10 year process where new studies are required in many situations, or for most chemicals. So there's updated information available that I can share.
I think that would be helpful. We do have to keep reminding ourselves that we're in a very sensitive area, that we're talking about our quality of our drinking water. So it's not such that we're in the middle of a field. We've got our wetlands. So I think any information that you could send to us would be appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chairman?
I think we gotta move along. If, would you like to come back on the 16th of November with more detail?
Is there any other details other than the mobility? Anything else?
I guess I would just include that you're going to need a waiver, right? Like, I don't know if that's been.
Yep, the commission would send Amy any thoughts that we have, and Amy could share with you if we have specific questions after this discussion tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think just a reevaluation of, not spraying at all, and like really what that would mean. And then when would the spraying end? Would it just be like spraying as maintenance every single year in perpetuity? Like what's the game plan? So just.
No, the game plan is after the first year is where you really have to use the most chemical. And when I say the most chemical, for a related example, we on another project in Northborough, the amount was
I think you need to do your research so we can move on. We've got a lot of stuff, a lot on our agenda tonight, and we've given you a fair amount of time. I'm sorry, but we have.
It's okay.
And gives you a chance to think it all through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Continued public hearing notice of intent, 336 and 338 King Street, U19, 38-0 and 38-1, Mass DEP file number, senior residence development with 24 residential dwelling units and parking, stormwater, BP, BMP, and on-site septic. Who wants to speak to that one? Anybody?
Yes, Bruce Ringwald here. Sorry, I had to unmute.
Okay, good.
Good evening.
You again.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that, guys. I had,
Your background's off. Your background is all wrong. You need to be standing in the woods or in front of a building or something.
Yeah, I know. I'm really goofing up tonight. This laptop doesn't allow me to do a background, so I have to show the inside of the house, unfortunately. I submitted in a document for a commitment letter for the Hager Homestead, and I believe that's been sent around to you all. It's basically the document that we had submitted before about mowing and maintenance of the trails and mowing of the wetlands, but we had turned it into a form more so of a commitment letter, deleted a few things, added a few things in. And Amy and I have talked about a possibility of a couple additions, but we have waited to have this evening's meeting to determine if you wanted to add those in or not.
Do you want to go forward with them?
You want to go forward with the letter?
Yeah, what your additional recommendations are, or
Well, yeah, so I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at it. It was based on what they submitted probably a month ago, initially at this point, which is very comprehensive. My only concerns were how you want to tie down what they're committing to, if you will. They have the mowing, but they suggest several different strategies. The trail maintenance is fairly straightforward, and the plantings, they have a very impressive list, but not any specifics on how many. And I know this is all going to be sort of a work in progress as they actually build and see how things look out there. So I don't know if you want to try to build something in here about in the first 2 or 3 years, have whoever is controlling the project at that time come into the commission, discuss how things are going with mowing or invasive controls. And or if you would want at least minimum commitment on what kind of plantings in the buffer zone you'd want to see. Even just a certain number chosen from this, almost 2-page list of possibilities, of very good possibilities. So I don't know how you wanted to work any of that in, because I believe this is the last bit of discussion, but I'm not sure.
Any of the commissioners got a comment?
I think the 3-year, ideally what we've spoken about in the past is a 3-year commitment for review. I think the commission is a little nervous to not have really all the I's dotted when it comes to plantings and such. I recognize there's going to be some infield changes, but I think I would rather err on the side of precision on some of these items.
So along those lines, obviously they need to construct the residence and move in to have a better feel for the property. As we've said from the very beginning, the meadow is something that wants to be maintained as a meadow. But when we were all out there, we all saw that where the wetland line was flagged up towards the location where the development's going to occur has been mowed as lawn for many, many years. And so that's the area that we're looking at adding in perennials and other plants in that area so that we have a better definition of the wetland line. What some of the members of those folks that are committed to the site already have discussed is to have maybe a couple clusters of shrubs in those areas to highlight the angle points, if you will, of the wetland line as defined, and then put in some more perennial planting in between. But we really are hesitant to plant shrubbery and or woody products, trees and such in the area that we're trying to keep as a meadow. Once they are there and are living there and get a better handle on the thing, then we can have a better idea as to how many plants are necessary and where. They may be more out in the back by the pond and along some sections of the trail that aren't right immediately behind where the residence and the development's going to be. That area is, a lot of that area wants to still be open to the meadow. What we were talking about is a 2-year thing, but maybe a 3-year thing, whereby once they are there and living there, that they have an annual get together with you folks in the fall on the site. Social distancing hopefully will be down at that point, but if not, social distanced, and look at what's been accomplished over that year and what they've done. And as far as committing to a certain number, we have the wetland line and we have the meadow and we have the line all defined, but we need to have a better line as to where the land has been mowed and it was only able to be determined that it was wetlands by augering. So that area definitely needs some help. but to come up with a specific number of plants, I would say lots of perennials and, no more than a dozen shrubs, maybe even 6 shrubs, to hit a few angle points with a cluster of 3, 3, and 3 in different places.
If I can interject, so
Yep.
I guess where I stand is, how do we have assurances that say the commission changes, you change? Is there a budget that is allocated for this that is kind of like, that's going to move with this project for the next few years? How do we have assurances that if the players change, we don't want the meadow to turn into a putting green? How do we, if we don't kind of do some of these fine points, there's a tremendous amount of trust, which I think the commission is very trustworthy, but we've been burned on some of these. And that's why I think we're trying to really have some assurances. So
Okay, which is why we're proposing a commitment letter right now while the
what is the budget in the commitment letter?
I don't know that we have a budget in the commitment letter. We don't have a budget in the commitment letter. What we have is how we're going to mow and what we're going to mow, that we're not going to mow into the wetlands other than to mow the meadow on an annual basis. And we've given guidance for all that in accordance with the guidance that the town of Littleton has worked on with SVT, in accordance with, the Mass Audubon guidance, and in accordance with things that Jim has said at the previous hearings, that from his experience of mowing other conservation lands. So those things are all things that we're agreeing on. And as well as I do that there's no way that meadow is going to turn into a putting green with your commission, no matter who winds up owning the property. So,
I guess budget-wise, I was referring, and I appreciate the mowing aspect, but also the plantings, any future plantings.
Again, if it's a meadow and we're maintaining, as we've all talked about, maintaining a meadow, the only real reason for any planting is to plant what's been mowed down so much that is only be able to be determined by that's wetland by the augerings. So GPR has survey located the wetland delineation that we've all agreed to in the ORAD. That's a public document, and I have all those coordinates and controls for all those points that it can be recreated at any time in the future. So that's all in place. So the budget for planting in and around there isn't a necessary item as much as to maintain that line and to know where that line is. You have it on file and we have it on file.
Good. Thank you for that.
Maybe some high bush blueberries or something at a given definitive point.
I totally agree. I think that's what I was saying, a cluster of 3 type plants, maybe 3 high bush blueberries at one area, maybe swamp azalea at another corner, and then, another cluster of, we have a whole list of very good plants that are wetland indicator plants that we've put on there, and we could do those at some angle points so that we know where that is. But the residents need to get the buildings up and to be in them so that they can have a good feel of where those points are relative to it. And we'll stake those points out again for them so they can see. We'll have you guys come out and take a walk with us, and they'll pick some plants and put some plants in.
So what would it take? A $10,000 commitment or something for plants for them to set aside for plantings, or?
Come on, Jim, you've planted shrubs and perennials before. We're talking a couple $100 for the amount of planting we're talking about in this area.
Well, that's what I'm throwing out, just as a commitment.
Yeah.
From the group.
But that is the problem, is there can be very different ideas of what the commission is going to end up with. And if this is considered mitigation, it's very unusual for the mitigation to say, we'll do it in 3 years. And we don't know what it is.
Right, but is this considered mitigation? We have a wetland line that we all agree to. We have an ORAD for that, and we're not looking for mitigation. We're not replicating something. We're not restoring something. There's a line that's there. If it isn't mowed on a regular basis and it's true wetlands, then we're going to get wetland vegetation coming in, albeit a lot of it would be invasive That's why we want to do plantings in there so that we don't have invasive coming in. And, we've got people that are current land stewards on their conservation lands in the towns that they live in now that are part of the program. And they're going to be bringing that expertise there.
So are we saying that we're mowing the wetland or we don't?
The wetland itself is not being mowed other than where the trail is. The wetland itself is going to be mowed on an annual basis, Carl. If it's not, it's going to turn into a progressional forest. And we talked about that on the site walk when we were looking at the delineation of the wetlands. There's been something that's been brought up forever.
It's been mowed pretty regularly, hasn't it?
It's been mowed very regularly.
Yeah, it's considered, Carl, it was considered a meadow wetland that we're trying to maintain, not a wooded wetland in this case.
So you've got to mow it, or you're going to get alders and all kinds of scrub stuff in it if you don't keep on top of it.
How about if we suggest a $2,000 commitment towards planting, and we add in their commitment that in the fall of each year, once the residents are in place, because we'll have stuff going on to maintain trails and mowing during construction, but we won't be getting into any planting or anything until the residents are in place. So once the residents are in place, we'll have a scenario set up for several years to meet with you folks the fall of each year, what has been done, what they propose to do the following year, and move forward. And then prior to any planting being done, they would contact your office and let Amy know that they're going to be out there planting so that no one drives by and freaks out that they're seeing a couple people out in the middle of the field with spades.
So why do we, I'm kind of with Amy on this one. Why can't we just designate the plants? It's being developed not necessarily by the residents going to be moving in. So it should be the decision of the developer what goes in there.
Carl, you're forgetting this project. We don't have a developer. The residents themselves are basically the developer of this project. We have a handful that are already signed on, and others that are committing and are getting interested now that we've gotten the planning board approval. Once we hit a certain level of committed folks, then the project will be able to move forward with actual construction. So it's not a matter of, it's a matter of maintaining the wetland that's there. And I don't think Amy suggested that we have to have a certain plant list, because we have a huge plant list that we submitted in the document that we gave you.
So does the $2,000 include like labor, and like what exactly does that include? Because I feel like we should have a quote to back up whatever we're agreeing to, or maybe we could talk about less impervious surface, up gradient, and because I think what's happening is we talked about an agreement, and I 100%, I'm a gardener. I've, done a lot of turn on the plants on my property. I completely appreciate, wanting to see what's there. And this is a little different scenario because it's a co-op, and the folks who are living there are the developers. But I do think sometimes these things can get lost, and not due to nefarious intent, just they can get lost in the shuffle. And so I do think it's important that we come up with perhaps a realistic budget number backed up by a quote, to go in a bond per se, just so there's a little more teeth to the agreement.
Especially so it's clear what is required to be done before a certificate of compliance will be issued.
Right. And what exactly is included.
So
$2,000
what
cover the plants, but does it cover the labor?
Is this mitigation for all the work in the buffer zone? Or is this an amenity that the co-op residents want to do? So I'm just not sure what.
This is as I look at it, this is something that the co-op owners want to do to help define where the line is for the wetlands, so that everybody knows where the wetlands is from now on out, especially in the area adjacent to where the development is, because that's where you're most concerned about some intrusion to that occurring. In the area in the back, we've said from the get-go, the trails that we've shown on the plan and the trails that exist there are the trails that they wish to have, only not mowed out as far and wide as they are currently, and not mowed as often and as low to the ground as they are currently. You know, right now there's much more area mowed than is necessary to be mowed on a regular weekly basis. So we're saying that we're trying to help with that and to set that up as a different thing. You know, the work that's in the outer 50-foot buffer is what we've asked for to do with the order of conditions, and we've established all that along. So what we're trying to do now is to say, we're going to establish this edge. We want to add more planting along the edge of the wetland line where there isn't going to be travel or walking around the surface, the perimeter of the area. And so, you know, the budget for that we're saying is for plant material, and the residents will want to be doing the work themselves, most likely, in gardening and putting it in. $2,000 buys an awful lot of plants when you're not buying big trees.
It seemed like the plants are an alternative as to requiring it staked out. This is the wetland buffer with sign postage. It seems like that's where we're at.
Yep, or granite posts. And it was part of the agreement of the overall plan to begin with, you know, was that, you know, we were going to talk about plantings and include plantings. So if that's problematic, you know, maybe we should talk about other parts of the plan, like reducing impervious surfaces within the 50 to 100.
It's not problematic of doing the planting. We have no problem with that. What's problematic is if we're changing from it being a meadow to it being some other type of a wetland. It's always been a wetland meadow since 1700s when this whole thing was a farm.
So basically, we need the plantings to delineate the extent of where the grass or the lawn's going to stop at. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
So we need enough of a budget so we can say if they haven't completed it in a year's time, that there's going to be money there that they can go and get plants and put them in, or there must be like an organization, or I'm trying to think of the correct term, that'll oversee this, right?
Within the governance of the co-op, yes.
Yeah.
But I disagree with the year's time. Within a year's time from if you were to issue an order of conditions in the near future, a year's time, they're just going to be getting the thing built. So we need time for them to be there and to establish this line. You know, we'll go back and we'll mark where the line is or where the line was delineated, and then they'll come in and plant with it. And if you want to have markers at certain points, then we could put markers at certain points.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what's the alternative. I mean, some people don't want the markers, some people don't care. And I'm just trying to figure out where we're at. You probably have to put pins in at some point just so there's some reference point, so Amy or somebody else can check it.
I think there's going to end up having to be some markers in the ground. They don't have to be the big signs, but there will definitely have to be some type of markers for sure.
Why don't we get some, you know, numbers, reasonable numbers on paper, you know, for the plant, you know, some sort of reasonable budget and exactly what it includes so we can move forward.
But I think you have to have a good time frame too, Julie. So I think obviously what Bruce just said is they're not going to know in a year, but you have to have some stopgap that within 2 years. My concern is that all of a sudden, just like with banks, they're like, oh, we have to have our order of conditions has to be signed off. We need a new level of financing, and we're going to be rushed to have this done, and that may not be appropriate. So.
No, it definitely wouldn't be appropriate from that standpoint. You know, there's one thing about having the order of conditions signed off for work outside of the zone, but for the mowing and the maintenance of the site, that's going to be an ongoing thing.
So would we have to extend the guarantee beyond 3 years that this stuff will get done? I don't know how quick these buildings will go up. I mean, you go around and see construction today, it seems like they weren't there and then they're there in a month.
I can totally relate with that. How about this? How about if Amy and I and one of you choose somebody and somebody from Hager Homestead, we get together on Zoom or in person at social distance, and we mark up a plan for a few places that would be key to have a monument and bounds of some sort set, and look at a few places for plants. And I'm thinking primarily the area in the corner where the development is proposed. And then we mark that up and we add that in, modify the commitment letter to incorporate that and to incorporate a sum of money with it. And we can get a proposal for, a budget for putting in the shrubs that we pick out for that area and add to that.
Amy, do you think that's reasonable?
Yeah, I think who on the commission want to work on it?
Yeah, so I would be happy to work on this, but I have a question. How important is a budget when we can you just do what Bruce is saying and say, here's a commitment letter, but we add the commitment that we're going to put bounds in.
Yep.
We will have X amount of plants in X amount of locations. Why does it have to be a money thing?
If
Good question. I've never.
If they are on the plans and it is not a budget thing, they have to put them in.
Right.
They're not on the plans. That's the problem, is they're not on the plans. If there's a planting plan, then we have a planting plan and something to just say, did this happen or did it not happen? So if there's a planting plan, then that makes a difference.
That seems a lot easier and more straightforward than trying to throw a dart at a number on the wall somewhere.
Yep.
Right. So if we get together, 4 of us, and we mark up a plan, but we don't mark specific plants, we say plants based upon this commitment letter. I don't want to put specific plants on the plan when there's a whole choice of acceptable plants.
Oh yeah, I don't want to make that. I feel like the residents should be able to choose the appropriate bush based on what they want to see.
But what if they want no bushes? They want all herbaceous. Like that's.
No, it has to be
So then there's a bound there that sets the corner, and there's all herbaceous. Who cares?
Why can't
The
you
bounds
just?
cost money, so you need to have money set aside to do that.
That's correct. Or, well, you don't need to have money set aside to do that. You need to have it on a commitment that's into the order of conditions, and it makes it to the commitment letter.
So I
think put it on a plan.
Going in circles a little bit about plantings. Ultimately, the Conservation Commission is going to approve the planting. So if all of a sudden they want to do all herbaceous, and the Conservation Commission, whoever that is, during that time period, can say yes or no. They're the final authority on that. So I think that there has to be some latitude here that the commission is still going to make the last decision.
Why can't, Sarah, why can't you just have a list of plants and say, we'll choose amongst this list of plants? I mean,
they have a list.
Isn't that what we're doing?
Then let's just put that on there. And
because they could plant one plant and call it done, technically.
No, I think we have.
You'll never sign off on it, Julie.
We need to put, obviously.
Correct.
I know.
Need to put numbers of plants on there, but just pick them off the list.
And it can be arranged 6 to 9 shrubs.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's fine. I think we just need more detail in the commitment about what exactly, like what is going to happen within a range of acceptability.
Right.
Rather than here's a list of plants we might plant.
Right.
Right. There.
Brian, let Brian speak. Brian,
You just need one sentence in there that clarifies it all. That's simple enough.
Yeah, that's what we need, because right now we have nothing. So.
Okay, so Amy and I are on board. Kyle's on board, and I'll grab somebody from Hager Homestead. Kyle, are you available during the week? I'd like to get it done maybe this week so that you guys can mull it over and look at it before your next meeting.
Yeah, other than tomorrow, I'm pretty available.
Other than tomorrow, you're pretty available. Sounds like a plan, Amy.
Let's figure it out. Let's see, Wednesday? I don't know, it depends what happens Tuesday night, but I'm around.
But we'll keep going, so you guys can finish that up later. So
You're not pulling an all-nighter Tuesday night?
Can I ask the question, just so I understand, what is the expectation, and I forget, for the area from the wetland line to the 50, right at the development? Is that going to be field or is that going to be lawn?
Right now, it's lawn. We're proposing that it have the lawn trail that's in there. And then I'm sure there'll be some plantings below the units themselves and some plantings outlining the line of the wetlands and or markers and perennials. You know, there'll be something in that area, but that's what we're going to talk about.
Because that's a big difference between restoring the inner 50 or just planting along the edge of the wetland.
We never said we were restoring the inner 50.
Sorry, Bruce?
I said, I don't believe we ever said we're restoring the inner 50.
No, I don't think you did, but I don't know if the commission has ever had the final discussion about what, if any, mitigation is needed. So I just want to know what the commission's expectations are. Have some idea there.
I think, personally, I think if it's kept mowed, it keeps the rodents and stuff out.
There's no question, at least part of it has to be kept mowed.
Yeah.
Keep the ticks out, let people use it, so.
Its main thing is not have it built on and have it lawn or something to keep it so it doesn't erode. It'd be my expectation.
How about
the rest of the members?
So maybe there could be a generic 10 foot wide planting zone along the edge of the wetland. It would not be 100% planted, but that would be the target area.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think there was concern about turning it into like proper lawn with, fertilizer and that type of runoff. I think if it stays what it is now and is mowed the way it is now, and we have the planting buffer to help delineate that, for like a landscaper or whatnot. Not that most landscapers want to mow in the wet. I'm fine with that.
Let's let them go forward and see what they come up with. We've got still another bunch of hearings to go yet.
Let me know when they use the European sits to mow the areas. I'd love to watch them do that.
I crossed that out, actually. Why not?
Fair enough.
Okay.
I'll reach out to you guys tomorrow and we'll set something up.
All right.
Thanks, Bruce.
All right. Thank you. So we'll continue to your next meeting?
16th.
Yep. The
All
16th.
right.
Continued public hearing request for amended order of conditions, 151 Taylor Street, R10-14-0, Massview, file number 204-906. And I guess the other one too, we might as well include with it. Continued public hearing notice of intent, 153 Taylor Street, R10-14-1, Mass DOT file number 204-917, demolition of existing office building and development of fleet storage parking lot. Somebody want to speak to that?
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Todd Morey from Beals Associates. I have Larry Beals and Matthew Costa from our office with me. We also have Brian Orr on the meeting this evening from Northbridge Partners, the prospective property owner. And I believe Calvin Champlin from Amazon is with us tonight as well. So in the interest of time, I just want to quickly summarize. I think the last meeting we had with you folks was really dominated by two major discussion topics. One of them was the floodplain. Are we in it? Are we not in it? Is there jurisdiction there or not? And I think we concluded that with, we had presented a lot of evidence that we didn't believe we were, reasons we didn't believe we were. And then I think it was Julie that came up with the request to put that all in writing, have it signed, stamped by a professional engineer, myself, and submitted to Amy which we did shortly after that meeting. So hopefully that puts that issue to rest. We continue to believe we are not in a floodplain. We are not in a jurisdictional area. And it's just an anomaly of the existing mapping. So the second major topic that we had, that we discussed, that really took a good portion of that meeting as well, was de-icing and how we handle that and what we can do to minimize impacts from that, and some of the alternative methods that we could use. So we left that meeting. We did some fairly exhaustive research again to take a look at some of the ideas where we could either reduce it, find a different type of compound, and things like that. I have pages and pages and pages of notes that I can put up on the screen. We're running late tonight. It's a quarter past 10. I can go through those if you like, but what I'd rather do is we discussed quite a bit with Northbridge on a program to monitor the amount of salt that's being put down. We also think we can take advantage of a unique situation that this property has. And I don't know if the entire commission is aware of it. I know Amy's aware of it. But there's several monitoring wells that the Littleton Water Department checks on a regular basis that are located just off the back edge of the pavement on both 151 and 153. I don't know if you folks knew that or not. But early on in the process, we had talked to their water quality manager, a gentleman named Corey, and his last name escapes me at the moment, but just to find out, excuse me?
Godfrey.
There it is. Thank you. To find out what the issues were on this site. And he was also kind enough to share some of the most recent round of testing that he had from some of the wells off the backside of 153. So what we'd like to do is, in order to take advantage of the fact that there are wells there, is to implement a 5-year testing program where we would submit monitoring reports at the end of each winter season that describes how much and how frequently de-icing compounds were used. And with that information, we can also correlate it to what the water quality test results are showing. So right now we've heard from Littleton Water that the salt concentrations in those wells off the backside of 153 Taylor are not elevated like they are in other parts of the town. So I think it provides a pretty good base case. So we aren't going to start at a point where we're already elevated. I think if we're starting at a point where they're more or less acceptable and we see a change in it, then we would need to make an immediate change to our de-icing program. And like I said, we'd like to do that for a period of at least 5 years so we can keep that data going. And we would follow up rather quickly with those monitoring reports once we get out of the winter season and stop applying for that here. And that'll allow us, it looks like the Littleton readings on those wells come out right around June of each year. So it'll allow us to take a look and see what's going on the property and really try to figure this out, what's going on here. It might also be useful for the town in general, just to have that information. So if there's other properties that are in sensitive areas, a program could be developed for other properties as well. While we're doing that, we'd also are willing to commit that in the event the town adopts a formal policy townwide or on other larger developments of how to handle these de-icing issues, we'd certainly be willing to entertain going right along with it. The other piece to that is, and I'm going to share my screen in just a moment, is we've looked at doing a trial area of heated pavement. Now, I'm going to caution you, it's not a large area, but we were fairly careful of where we selected it. And let me share my screen here for just a moment. And that's not going to work. Let me try this again. Sorry about that. That seems to have worked. So what we did is we took a look at when when you're applying salt and other de-icing chemicals, especially out of the back of a truck, a lot of times if it's going onto a hardened pavement surface, it'll bounce. And a lot of times it bounces into areas that you don't intend to have it. If you have looked at where the wetlands are on this site, as you go from Taylor Street up here, you come down past 151 Taylor and move down towards 153 Taylor. You go along this stretch of road, which off both the left and the right side features a fairly steep embankment. It's about a 15-foot drop from the road surface right down to the wetland edge. So we selected this area because it was, first of all, it's a fairly steep section of roadway. And second of all, this is an area where if the excess salt is bouncing off the roadway and going down into the wetland area, not only would it have a chance to have excess salt concentrations in the groundwater, but it would come in direct contact with some of the wetland vegetation, which would not be very good for those plants. So as I said, this area, we'd like to have a trial location with a heated pavement system. It's a system that Northbridge is also looking at on one of their other properties. And we just think that would be a beneficial area to try this out. So I think those are really the two main things I wanted to talk about this evening. At that point, I guess we should open this up for any additional questions or comments from the commission.
How are you going to heat it?
It's a glycol-based system.
It's closed loop, right? It's
Closed loop, absolutely.
Closed loop glycol, like under the pavement.
Yep, and it runs. It's powered and run from the 151 Taylor building.
So we actually have a similar system. We reviewed all our properties across our portfolio. So we have around 30 properties right now. So actually we have this system in Northborough. So it's in an environmentally sensitive area where salt is, similar issue here. So we actually have it. It's a closed loop glycol system. And it works really great, especially with steep grades like we have going from 151 to 153. We thought this would be a perfect spot for it just to minimize the salt impact, especially with the trucks and the grade change and maintaining the vehicle safety.
Does this also do the sidewalk too? I assume there's a sidewalk between the two buildings?
Yep,
correct.
It does go under the sidewalk as well.
So how is this working at the Northborough side? Is it a small test area like this, or is it a much larger parking lot?
It's around the same size. It's actually to a FedEx freight distribution. So there's a pretty steep grade change when you're going up to the site, and then we salt on the surface, the large surface parking lot on top.
So what would be the intention of the test? To see if it can be more widely expanded on the property, or just to see if it works?
I wouldn't say it's a test so much as we're trying to get a win-win with you guys, balancing salt applications and the amount that we put down. And given the grade change here, we thought this would be one of the higher areas that we'd be putting salt down. So, and also we're trying to balance costs. This is a $500,000 system. So, and this is coming from the landlord's, funds to do this. So we're trying to balance safety, costs. We'd like to expand it, but we're also, sensitive to, just how much we can spend here. We know there's been various discussions on other uses for the parking lots at 153, but given the cost of those, we're trying to come up with a compromise. And, this is a significant investment on behalf of, ownership, but we think this could be hopefully a good compromise and offset some of the salt, but also maintain vehicle safety.
So one thing I wanted to share that I was thinking, Brian, your comment last hearing about the point and, what are they doing, and just some, and obviously it's not apples to apples, but so I go to one of the gyms there. So I'm in their parking lot at 6 o'clock most mornings. And one thing I've noticed is they have Cataldo there every single morning, sweeping the parking lot. They have usually a couple times a week, like a street sweeper sweeping the parking lot. And then almost every day they have someone there picking up trash, like an army of guys. I've had actually, when it was warmer, just recalling some of their equipment and having to kind of dodge that a little bit in the parking spot it was in. And so I hadn't really given it thought in that context until your comment from the last hearing, but I just figured that was something I would share, that they do a ton of cleanup, a ton of sweeping, and a lot of maintenance there.
As the property owner, and we'll be in charge with property management as well, we have trash as a priority. That we're making a significant investment in the overall site, 151 and 153. We want to have a clean site. We're trying to be stewards of the property. Whether we sweep or we'll have trash cans available, but also within 151 itself, that will house a lot of the operations for bathrooms, trash, food, and just an overall rest area. But Todd and Larry can probably address some of the fencing that we're going to be doing around the perimeter to help prevent trash getting into the wetlands as well.
Yeah. So one of the details that we've used, and I think you recall the discussion we had when we did the original permitting for 151 of having the short chain link fence over by the pond. We've actually come up with something that we think works a little bit better, and I think it certainly looks a little bit better. It's basically a taller wooden guardrail that comes around that perimeter, and on the back side of it, we put black vinyl coated chain link mesh. So the vinyl coated chain link mesh kind of disappears into the background. You don't see it as much, and it looks, from the untrained eye, it just looks like a area of wooden guardrail. But what that serves as is that low barrier to get that to pick up that trash. And I think at one of the prior meetings, I also spoke to the tree plantings that we're doing on the north. I think it's probably the northwesterly side, which coincides with where we had really seen a heavier concentration of trash in the woods when we did the wetland delineation.
That might also help prevent turtles and other things from going up there and being hit by your vehicles.
Well, we if you've been out to the 151 site, and if you haven't, I encourage you to do it, because I think ARCO did a spectacular job of installing and managing the barrier. We do have that turtle protection barrier there that we worked with the folks at Natural Heritage on developing that and making sure that was set right. And it's done a pretty good job. They did find one turtle, and apparently one of their on-site superintendents one morning actually tracked him partway across the site. He saw the footprints and he tracked him. But it's done a very good job keeping him out. We're going to be using that same system at 153 as well, because
and that's why we have our contractor on. He's David on the call right now, so everybody can hear this. This is important, and that's what we're trying to, convey to everybody working on the site, and that will translate to operations. We want to work with you guys, and we want to make sure we have a really good product or end result with what we're producing. And having David on the call to hear that's important, and it gets translated into the entire team.
So what are you thinking from like a frequency of trash cleanup and street sweeping and that type of thing?
We probably do it weekly.
Is that going to be written into an O&M plan? Or what?
We can write it in if you'd like. We haven't done, I don't know if street sweeping would be necessary, but if you guys would like to see that, especially during the winter season, or at the end of the winter season, we can definitely work that into our plan. And given the excess salt or sand, we can definitely make sure to have that part of the operation plan.
street sweeping's in the O&M plan right now. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the frequency of it is, but we're happy to change it to weekly. And that can also be written in the order.
That will also reduce the nutrients flowing into the wetland too.
It absolutely would.
Yeah, I've seen that as actually one of the most effective ways to reduce nutrient pollution in stormwater.
Yeah, why don't we can definitely work that into the plan.
Oh, I like the idea of the groundwater monitoring program that you touched on at the beginning of the call. I'm wondering what sort of arsenal of kind of follow-up actions do you have if you do start to see elevated levels of de-icing compounds or anything in the groundwater that we don't want there? You know, what sort of corrective actions do you have at your disposal to mitigate those?
So a couple of the indicators that we would see based on the testing and the type of monitoring that Littleton Water does now is we would see the level of chloride or sodium change. We would see the hardness of the water change if we were using a different compound that wasn't sodium chloride, if we were using a calcium chloride or a magnesium. And those are the kind of things that we'd be looking for. You know, what's changing? Chloride, hardness, excessive calcium changing. And then once we can see that test data, if we find that it is going up or it's changing in a negative manner that's not good for the water quality, we would immediately alter the program for the following year. So if that means reducing the amount of salt, or increasing the pretreatment, you can also pre-treat or use a wetted salt to help reduce some of your application rates by up to 50 or 60%. So we would start to try to mix those in as well.
Thanks.
So, why can't you just plan to use the wetted salt?
Well, I think that's part of any winter maintenance program now anyway. So it's not that we wouldn't use it. That's normally used on a parking lot. So if you look around, you'll see two things happen on parking lots. You'll see some parking lots get brined, some parking lots just use the wetted salt. Some parking lots actually use both, I think. But it's not something that you would add in. You would just increase the frequency of it.
Okay. So is there, I guess, I'm not sure if I'm asking the question right. Can we just plan to do the corrective action step if that is still acceptable and is still safe? Can you just do that instead of, you know, if you are able to reduce, why not just start with the reduction? You know what I mean?
Well, I understand. Yeah, I understand, and that's where I think the 5-year program. I think we'll try the most aggressive pre-treatment plan possible, but I think having the monitoring annually and being able to figure out where we are and then test off of that, we'll be working with the snow plowing companies to make sure that they're using the most amount of pre-treatment possible. But if we have to fine tune it in the following year, then we'll do that. It's just how much of the balance that we have to get down versus, salting once the snow is actually there.
I think, Julie, the other problem is that nobody really knows what is the answer. How much is the right amount? I'm sure you've seen the roads that get turned white in the wintertime, and parking lots that get oversalted. So, I think the first step is to not do that. That makes the most sense to me. You don't need to turn the parking lot white. But the next question is, okay, so how little can you go and still create a safe situation? And if we find we're using too much, then we know we have to keep going less and less and less. If we start to all of a sudden lose that safety, then there's got to be other solutions. We've got to come up with something different. We looked at using organics, and the problem with organics is now you start to put a heavier phosphorus load into your groundwater, and I don't think anybody really wants that either.
Well, what about the ethylene glycol system? I'm expanding that to the whole parking lot.
So we've looked at that.
About that before.
And it's a cost issue, Anna, and that's where for 10,000 square feet, it's going to cost $500,000 to put that in, which is a significant, investment on our behalf.
But is it less expensive than say a parking garage?
Yes. Or sorry, both are just in the millions of dollars and just would be uneconomical. So that's where we thought placing this where we could would be the most effective use of dollars and also the most effective placement just to reduce the salt load given the grade change.
I guess, I mean, if you're going to wait until it actually gets into the groundwater, then essentially it's too late. You're going to have this bolus of salt moving toward the our wells, and there's very little you can do about remediating that. And it would seem like it would be, you know, a forward thinking to prevent that by, even if you spend $500,000 up front, you'll prevent all that salt, buying all that salt every year. I mean, have you done life cycle analysis like that?
We are spending fun.
Yeah, maybe I could jump in on this. I'm Larry Beals, and I have a long history with the site. And I think what we're trying to convey here is that when this site was originally developed, it was using the methodologies and the technology and the design standards that were state of the art at the time in the early 80s. And believe it or not, we thought it was an advanced design because prior to this site, the normal way of managing stormwater was a straight pipe into the wetlands. And we thought, well, we're going to do something innovative and we're going to put some leaching catch basins onto the site, and rather than discharge the wetlands, and we infiltrate the stormwater. And just in state of the art at the time, it seems fairly primitive now. But despite that, these wells aren't showing high levels of chloride in them. So I think what we really want to accomplish is make sure that we maintain the wells at their current level. So if there were a problem there right now from the existing, those buildings have been out there for probably 30 years and they've been sanded and salted every single year. And yet the wells, the monitoring wells around it are pretty good shape. I think the program that Todd has set up is to say, let's continue to monitor that and make sure that it doesn't become a problem in the future. So it's, and we're not looking at this as a preventative program, but more or less one that we can stay ahead of any problem that could potentially arise.
So if you start detecting chloride and sodium and whatnot in the water, and it becomes apparent that there is a problem, I think Brian asked, what are you going to do? And a reduction of salt was part of the answer, but really at that point we have a parking lot, we have an operational facility, and you can't stop treating it. So at that point, do you rip it out and heat the whole parking lot? At that point, is that the cost, or do you look to cover it? Do you just say we're not going to salt at all, we're just going to sand? I guess my concern is, and I want to, I guess, recognize, like, I think that I like the monitoring program. I like the obvious thought that was put into selection of that heated section, and so I want to just, recognize those things and not gloss over them. But from a practical standpoint, what do you do once you detect that the groundwater is being impacted?
Well, the site has been in use. It might not be occupied, but they're still paving it. It's a life safety issue. So they're still applying salt right now. And if we're redeveloping an existing site, and I understand that, we're trying to improve the project that was developed in the late 80s, but this has been actively salted and plowed for 30 something years, and there are not elevated salt levels right now in this specific groundwater. So, and we're also taking back about an acre of impervious pavement, and on top of that, with the glycol system, I think you will see an improvement. I don't foresee it getting any worse with our pretreatment and limited, use of salt to see the levels spike.
If I could add something to that, Brian, Joel, you asked what would our next step be, and I think if, let's say we're operating the facility and we start to see a climb in the concentrations of chloride in these monitoring wells, then the first thing I'd want to do is really look at the data, look at the groundwater hydrology, and try to figure out where's it coming from. Because I would not want to wind up in a situation where DOT increases its salting program on the interstate and Route 2 and is causing the problem, and we're trying to diminish our salt use, and yet there's a tidal wave of salt coming in off the highways. So first step to me, and I'm a little partial to groundwater hydrology, and
file a DPS.
I just find it interesting, and I'd want to define that, and then I'd want to correlate it to the data that we've collected about how much, was it a bad winter, was it a good winter, where did we apply the salt, and how much did we apply? So I think we'd be looking at it more from a scientific hydrogeology perspective, and if it all points to us, then we've got some real work to do. And as you say, keep reducing the salt to a point where we're on the edge in terms of safety. And if that doesn't work, then we consider all sanding. And
well, and you'd really reduce it if you. I know you mentioned cost, but to your point, if you did an alternative that didn't use salt, like the heating solution, you would avoid all that liability in the future.
Well, it's a risk we're willing to take. I'm not sure we have a lot of liability because it's a 30-year-old site that doesn't show elevated levels of chloride in the monitoring wells directly downstream from our project.
Yeah, but you were just mentioning if you get chloride in the wells, then there'd be a battle on who contributed the most to it, and DOT or you guys, and pointing fingers, and
no, we're not.
Avoid all that if you had an alternative solution.
Yeah, we're really not finger pointers. And that's why I said we'd want to be certain, because having worked with Northbridge, I know they manage their properties well. They're responsible for what they do. And, the simple solution is if we're causing the problem, then it's our responsibility to fix it. But what we don't want to be doing is implementing things that are not causing the problem if the problem is originating elsewhere, because no matter what we do, if the problem is coming from another part of the area, no matter what we do, it's still going to be a problem. So I'm not looking for a finger pointing argument. I'm looking for let's define it and then let's fix it based on, a real good definition of what the problem is.
I just want to point out that currently the roof of the building is not being salted. So that's just, that area is not currently being salted, but will be in the salted area because it's being converted to parking lot.
I think that is actually offset by the impervious area that we're peeling back into the buffer zone, because I think it's around a 40,000 square foot. And that's where we'll work with you guys. That's why we want to do a 5-year. We're long-term owners. We're local. We're a local group. We want to have a collaborative approach, and that's why with the glycol system, with the updated stormwater management system, the land mitigation, funds that we'll be providing. We want to make sure that we're having a long-term relationship with you all, and that's the ultimate goal here. And we're not leaving you with a salt issue. We'll be working with you guys and providing this data for at least 5 years and trying to come up with a solution if there is one.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask if it seems to me if there's a way to write something into the agreement that if, we do see salt levels increasing, that there's an option to extend the monitoring for longer if
absolutely
you're still
applying it. Absolutely. We understand the concern, and we understand where you guys are coming from, and we're just trying to balance costs and safety. You know, like there are vehicles and people here, and we're trying to hopefully come up with a plan that's it is a win-win, for us and also, the town, because we want to leave it better than we found it. And that's where we think the plan that we've put in front of you guys accomplishes that.
How many vehicle parking spaces that will you be having there? Do you know?
On 153, between the vans, the commuter rail spaces that we're building, and the employee parking, I think there's 691.
Is there going to be any in the upper building too, parking, or is that all down on that one?
There's about 70 left in the upper building after we alter that.
And just for a point of interest, we came off of Route 2 yesterday or Sunday, and you could see the salt crystals all on the side of the road on Taylor Street. I mean, it was loaded from the snowstorm, so.
That wasn't us.
No, but I'm just saying, it was loaded with the salt chunks on the side of the road.
I spent a night, I was at a hearing in Littleton, and I forget where it was. It was one of the areas that was posted as a low salt zone. And I sat behind a plow truck with the rotor going, just dumping salt. For the length of the light, there was a small pile of salt deposited on the road in about 60 seconds. So, that's a management problem. And we can certainly manage a much better system on a privately owned site.
What the types of vehicles you use, are the vans, are they all-wheel drive, or are they front or wheel? How do they operate?
I'm not sure. So as we'll be the owners and we'll be leasing the site back to Amazon, there'll be Sprinter vans. I'm not sure if they're all-wheel or four-wheel or what type of drive they are.
Seems like I'm seeing around town all kinds of delivery vans. I mean, they seem to be using any mixture of them. And I'm not sure what company is responsible, but I mean, you see the Amazon ones, but you see some white ones without any insignias on them or anything.
I think you'll know the Amazon ones when you see them.
Yeah, but I just wonder if they sublet to private when they get an overflow of packages to deliver, if it's them or some other entity.
So Amy, can we circle back around? Where are we right now? What do you need from us?
I think, unless you want to vote it tonight, or do you want to see probably a revised plan with the glycol system shown on the plan, and some sort of write-up of what this groundwater monitoring and reporting 5-year plan will be, preferably with some sort of date in there, like if you get the water quality results by June, that you would submit it by, whatever time you need, so that there's time to change the winter plan if need be. So if you guys got that.
Yeah, I think I had already said that, we'll get our results in as far as what we spread right after the winter season's over, because we'll have all that information by then. So hopefully that's available before they even read the monitoring wells, and then we can take it.
How often are they reading the Littleton test in the well? Do you know? Is it once a month?
I'm not sure. I know it's at least annually. The last round that I saw from Corey was, I believe it was dated June 2019. So I would assume that he's probably got some June 2020 data somewhere.
And the O&M for the street sweeping, you're going to check that, the frequency.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna change it so it's weekly. So we'll make sure that O&M manual gets updated.
So it sounds like there's 3 or 4 items there that can be addressed for the next hearing, and I think we're making progress.
Just a quick question on the water sampling. That you're going to rely on Littleton to do their annual testing and use their data? Is that the way that would work?
Yes.
Perform your own rounds. Okay.
Yeah, in the past, I've noticed that water departments don't really like it when we go in and sample their wells. So
Are they on your property?
they are.
They're not your wells?
They are not our wells.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's
just
check with
concerned-
the water department on that.
Yeah. I would like to rather see you test these wells in March or something, rather than after a potentially very wet spring. And if we, you might miss a blip of potential increases in salt.
Well, you can certainly test it quarterly in the first year and always taper down. So I think that more
As long as Littleton's will allow them to, apparently.
Yeah, I think we can work with the water department, whatever they're comfortable with. Like I said, I just know most water departments don't like you getting into their wells without them knowing that you're doing it. So, but if this is an ongoing study and an ongoing monitoring system, we might be able to work something with them.
We could ask them to shift their monitoring dates.
Well, Kyle, how about this? Would it make sense if we considered installing 1 or 2 additional wells at strategic locations so that we can, and that way, I agree with Todd that the water department really doesn't want outside parties. Maybe we agree to pay for the testing so they can do it at a more frequent, but I'd rather be hands off on the town's wells, because if you come back with pure water, it's going to be a little suspicious about where exactly did this sample come from. I view the water department as being very impartial and unbiased and above reproach. But this discussion in my mind has suggested to me that perhaps we need to pop 1 or 2 wells into the site that we would have access to, that we could sample whenever we want to.
Or like you said, if Littleton's willing to alter their scheduled monitoring to up it to twice a year and change the time frame of it, and if willing to cover the cost or something. I mean, I know it's kind of short money to install a couple wells, but if you don't need to.
I'd hesitate
but it's actually a lot of fun.
I did it for 13 years.
I do think there are access, rights of entry concerns. I guess it makes sense that they own the wells, even though you own the property, and definitely deal with this quite a bit too. So it seems like maybe just owning your own monitoring program is the best, I think, is the best way to go. The groundwater is shallow. You can get a geoprobe through that sand very quickly.
Sand, right?
Then the well construction. Yeah. You're doing the development. There's no question on
We'll be happy to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, there are contaminated sites all over the place, and you test your own wells. I mean, I would trust a scientist who's, sampling the well to correctly sample the well and not, give us tap water or something. That's not really a concern I have. But I didn't realize that. I do think the water department complicates it. I do think relying on them, and Northbridge relying on them for data that we've agreed to that we're going to make decisions on is probably, what if the water department just can't get there? They don't have unlimited staff. They're dealing with PFAS. They're dealing with the sewer. They're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. So
we'll put them in, and then that will solve the problem. And then you guys all of us can have access to it and make sure we're monitoring it.
And the thing is, if you did see an elevated thing, you could correct it midstream in the winter or what have you. If you did come up with a high sample or something, you'd be able to correct it that much quicker.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plus, you could put it in at the depth that would be most effective. I'm not sure about the depth of the town's wells, and if they're pretty deep, it's not going to catch the quick, chloride levels that might be elevated from your parking lot.
Well, why don't we do this? These are a lot of good ideas. Why don't we, what I was going to suggest is if you're inclined to issue an order of conditions, then you could make a requirement that prior to construction, we deliver a monitoring program to the Conservation Commission, or start with Amy or the commission to review and approve it. And that way, so I've always learned that if you're going to put in monitoring wells, you want to do it under existing conditions for baseline data. So it's better for everybody. So we ought to get those wells in before any construction starts so that we know what it is today. And then we can certainly monitor it more frequently than perhaps the town could. So my suggestion is let's write a condition that requires us to develop a monitoring program to be approved by the commission.
I think you'd want to see a couple rounds of data, before your site's operational and we go through a winter season for sure.
Sure. Well, so that's a pretty good argument that the sooner we can close the hearing, the sooner we can start collecting data. I hate to be self-serving, but I don't want to do it when it's 30 below, and I don't want to do it once we're under construction, because then you don't know what happened.
This is not Larry's first rodeo.
Well, I did this 30 years ago. Rodeo.
So I think we do have a couple things before we can close the hearing. One is an updated plan showing the heated area. Yep. I know we had the presentation materials for the night, but I don't know that we have a plan.
That's not really a plan. It doesn't give you dimensions or anything.
So that's necessary before we can close the hearing. And then also just seeing the O&M, increasing the sweeping to once a week.
Yep.
Trash pickup too, I think should be in there. I don't know
well, we can put that right in that same document.
Your trash pickup frequency looks like, but so I think the O&M and the updated plan need to happen before we can close the hearing. But if it would seem like we could, do that at the next hearing. If those are
and why don't we work to? Well, go ahead, Anna.
Sorry. The design of your shorter wooden rails with the mesh fencing, that also should be in the plan, and the location of your monitoring wells. Mm-hmm.
And why don't we work, again, David from our contractor is on, so we'll get a lot of this information, then we'll work with Todd. If there's anything else, we'll send this over hopefully by the end of this week, just so you guys can review. And if you have any questions, just obviously feel free to reach out. Or if there's anything else that we've discussed that you'd like to see prior to the next meeting, just so you guys can have some time to review. Obviously let one of us know and we can track that down for you.
And one quick question, should we include, I'm assuming we should include 151 and 153 in the monitoring program? If we're going to do wells?
Seems like that's reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, 151 has wells on it already as well, correct?
The town, aren't they?
Yeah.
The town has 2 wells on 151 and I think 3 or 4 wells on 153.
So we'll come up with what we think is an appropriate program, and then you can tell us whether you agree or not.
Okay. Sounds reasonable.
Okay.
We got to move along. We still got one more hearing.
Well, you guys are amazing.
Thank you, everyone.
I don't think they're here, so.
Oh, so we can go another hour?
I know all those names are yours. I don't know who Glaus is.
Good night, Larry.
Another hearing to go to, Larry.
Thank you, everyone.
He's getting so close to being back in the barn.
We'll see you folks in 2 weeks.
Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
9, discussion Cooper Farm Lot 12, Mass DEP file number 204-845, and Lot 13, Mass DEP file number 204-846.
No,
Someone speak to that?
I sent them an email about, I don't know, when the Taylor Street people showed and everybody cleared out and I could see that they weren't present. So they're not here.
Okay. I don't even know what time it is. Do I want to know?
No, you don't. It's not 11 o'clock.
10:56, James.
So you put them on for next time?
I will table it. I'll see what happened. And Keolis is continued to November 16th. They're waiting for me to do that training, which I did. And now I found out it's going to take 2 weeks to get my stupid ID card. So.
Okay, that's for the,
Basically, I sent around those 2 pages or whatever of comments on their map, and they're going to redo the map and talk about, you know, some things they were going to change anyway, and then we're going to figure out where we should go.
okay.
I personally think that if Kyle had started walking it a month ago, we'd be done.
Yeah. Is there anything else?
Sign off, guys.
Yeah, and I assume nobody.
Good night.
Right.
I assume nobody has any interest in doing the goals and stuff. We can do that next time too.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I have one. Amy, do we have a draft of the goals? I may have missed it.
Yeah, it was sent email.
Okay, I'll look for it.
There's just a separate one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's kind of two. One is sort of more sort of goal oriented, and the other one is more a wish list.
Oh, I remember that email. Okay. All right, I'll go back. Thanks. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
10:57.
Okay, Carl Melberg, aye. Jim Pickard,
Jim Pickett, aye.
Kyle Maxfield,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Is Andrew still on the phone?
Yeah, anybody knows when he left?
I didn't even see when you left.
Yeah.
Sarah Seward,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Okay.
Night all.
Starting early.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.